Welcome back to another edition of the Rodcast. A great show planned for you. One of those mile markers, one of those signs on the way to the football season is media days. It used to be Big 12 media days for us, but now it's SEC media days. Started yesterday officially. That means we're getting closer and closer to football season. That makes it a jam-packed show talking college football. Got lots of sound from the coaches that took the stage yesterday at SEC media days in Texas, by the way. First time it's been that west of the Mississippi, I think ever, actually, at least in the modern age of the SEC media days. Lots to talk about Texas and Oklahoma, the newcomers going into the SEC. So we got sound from Brian Kelly, the LSU head coach, from Lane Kiffin as well, from the Vanderbilt head coach. Even Nick Saban's got something to say about Texas and the SEC. So we'll dive into that early and often on the show. We'll do that here in the first segment. We'll also dive into some NFL discussion. There is, I believe it's Jeremy Fowler doing his own survey of executives and of coaches and insiders in the NFL, and they're ranking different positions. And we haven't really gotten into it. He's been ranking positions probably for a week now, but they finally got to quarterbacks, and there's some disrespect. There's some straight up disrespect about where Dak is ranked. I'm just gonna say it, man. You guys know I try to keep it 100 on here. But I got to tell you, man, where they put Dak is just a straight up slap in the face. So we'll get into that coming up in the second hour of the show. Talk some NFL. Also, I'm doing my, kind of off-season research for college football and the NFL. Something the NFL is very concerned about. One of their biggest problem areas, I would say. And they don't have many problem areas, but this is one of the problem areas, and the NFL is freaking out about it. So I'll talk to you guys about it. We'll do that in Rod's rant of the day. We'll also yes, last night, the home run derby, and the star of the home run derby, and I don't even know if you want to say star, was the biggest moment of the derby came before the home run derby in the national anthem. So we'll relive that and talk about it and play some of it. We probably won't play all of it because I don't know if your ears could bear it. But we'll get into that coming up. We got all your usual favorites, the topic for the big fat poll of the day. We also got off the record. We got who said that. We got the what the facts, what the stats coming up a little bit later on. So we're jam-packed on the show today. Appreciate you joining us. Before we get into any of that, let's introduce you to the rest of the crew. He's one of the hardest working members of the AIN family. He's got a hustler spirit, period. Not sure what he's paid, but pretty damn sure this man is underpaid. Ain't no 401k for this hustler, and he's a hustle man of many talents. It's our friend, co-host, and neighbor. It's Patrick Davis, y'all. What's going on, Patrick? How you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. Yeah. Did you wait to watch any of that home run derby last night?
I watched snippets of it. Did not watch the whole thing, from start to finish. But yeah, I mean the national anthem, I pretty much stole the show.
So it did. I will say the end of it was amazing. The end of it was really fun.
Hey,
if you missed the end of it,
drama.
The end of it where Bobby Witt was feet away from tying it on the last shot and would have sent it into at least or he would have got another at bat, so he could have won it. But it hit the wall.
They said another round of it.
Yeah, he hit the wall when he was one home run shy of tying it. So that was a lot of fun. But this is the one I think this guy is getting completely. He's one of the luckiest guys that this national anthem was so bad. But I will mention him is Marcelo Hernandez, and it's not completely his fault, but he was a guy who introduced everybody at the beginning, and he's an SNL cast member.
Okay. I think I know you're talking about. Let me look this up. Let me Google him.
And he introed everybody, but then they tried to shoehorn in jokes in the intros.
Oh.
But you're trying to tell jokes in a
I know this guy. Yeah,
in
exactly.
a arena where music's blaring, the crowds are cheering, and then you're sticking in really bad jokes.
Yeah.
In the middle of it, and it was painful. And then he could tell because you're like, it's just an awful way. Even if the jokes were funny, it would have been hard to do.
Exactly. It's a tough crowd, man. That's a tough
and you're
crowd.
like, it's just a bad place to do it. It's just someone's like, hey, tell a joke. They're like, well, no one can laugh. And if no one can laugh at the joke, it's a bad place to do a joke.
Yep.
And so, but he's doing them. But then you can tell he's like, he does the joke and he's like, well, I didn't get any reaction whatsoever because nobody came here to laugh right now. They came here to watch baseball.
And does he amplify it? Does he try to?
Then he starts like riffing,
de-escalate it.
No, he tries riffing when the guys will come out, trying to make the joke work, and it was just brutal. And and then the jokes got worse as it went on, and it was so all of that happened. You were like, "This is awful." And then the national anthem happens. The announcer, I can't remember who was doing it, but the announcer at the end, he's like, "Well, these guys are." One of the guys does a Scooby-Doo impression. He goes, "Well, you nailed that, and not everything has been nailed tonight so far." You're like, "Oh, just noticing that it's been bad so far." But then they do the finals, and they bring out Michael Buffer. Let's get ready to rumble. They bring him out, and it's awesome. And you're like, "Why did you not use him at the beginning?"
That's what he does. That's his thing.
Why would you not put him at the beginning? And everyone would have been hyped the whole time. And I know you hyped up, and it's cool to put him at the end, but you had him. But why do we have to go through this whole thing at the beginning? You could have just had Michael Buffer the whole time.
Did the national anthem? It could have bombed, and then you would have had him, and then everybody would have brought you back in. And like, yeah, let's go.
Oh no, because they did that. They did the player intros, then they did the national anthem, and it was just 1-2 punch of really bad things. You were like, this is not as good. And we'll get into the national anthem, but that was when I was texting my friends last night, and everyone's like, oh, this is a MLB swing and a miss. It's MLB swing and a miss.
And it was probably the same person like that was in charge of approving both of them too.
Yeah,
it was like, we're gonna kill it. And
oh man, this is what happens when they're like, we're gonna get the youth involved. I'll tell you what, it's like 60-year-old men making decisions trying to get the youth involved. What do kids like? This hip comedian will get him, and that'll work. Because if there's one thing I know about baseball fans, they love new stuff.
That's exactly. That's a great point. They want. They want to be current. That's one thing about
baseball fans don't like tradition. No, man, don't believe that at all. It was.
But glad the home run derby was good.
The home run derby itself, I like.
The pre-home run derby festivities were terrible.
I liked the new format. It went a little bit quicker. You didn't, you kind of still had that. You had the still had the chase that was happening because as guys were going, you were getting guys knocked out. It was more like the 3-point competition in the NBA, a little bit more in that. So I liked what they did in it. It was a lot of fun to watch once it started. But it was the rocky start there for MLB. Not they son, and it's fun if you're an Astros fan because then you're like, come on, Arlington, come on, Rangers. This is your all-star game. This is what you start off with.
This is your best. Oh man, it was. Like I said, there's some people saying this national anthem may have been the worst, most butchered national anthem in history. And I was like, that's hard to do because I think Carl Lewis got he's the GOAT when it comes to that. But
Roseanne's up there too.
Roseanne's up there. Yeah, she did it intentionally. It's this actually. I don't know if she was. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know. Sometimes I think they're trolling all of us, and they want to go viral for these. Like I never knew who this young lady was, and now I had to Google her.
Yes. No, I listened to some of the songs to figure out. What it was. I listened to pieces of songs to figure it out afterwards.
I wonder if they're like, if you do a good national anthem, nobody cares, and nobody will listen to you. You do a bad one. And girl, your Google searches and your hits and it'll go through the roof.
But if you're gonna
I wonder if they're trolling us sometimes.
If you're gonna do that, we'll get into it. But if you're gonna do that, Fergie it, man. If you're gonna do it, Fergie it.
All right, I want you to explain that later too. We get into it. Somebody like, what Fergie? What does he mean by that? Yeah, I want you to get into that later too. That's good. They don't get the reference. All right, for the youngsters out there. All right.
Let me introduce you my co-host. I forgot to introduce him before I go in. My co-host is a proud alumni of DBU. He's got more papers than Dunder Mifflin and watches more film than Siskel and Ebert. He is the new Rod, father of Austin Sports Radio, Mr. Rod Babers.
I appreciate the intro, brother. Yes, we will get to the national anthem that went viral, that pretty much stole the show from the home run derby. We'll also get to actually some NFL discussion, but we'll start with lots of SEC Media Day talk, and we'll start, of course, with the Horn headlines before that and get you updated, educated, and informed on all the top stories of the day. So let's get right to it. Let's hit up my man Patrick and the Horn headlines, and then we'll dive deep into the SEC Media Day discussion.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, Teoscar Hernandez won the 2024 Home Run Derby, narrowly edging out Bobby Witt Jr. in the finals by 1 home run, 14-13, as Witt missed a home run in his final swing by a few feet. Hernandez had 19 in his first round, 16 in his second round to advance to the finals. Adolis Garcia just missed out on advancing to the second round with a first round 18. The cutoff was 19. And in the biggest surprise of the night, the two-time Derby champion Pete Alonso could only muster 12 home runs in the first round before he was eliminated. The MLB All-Star Game takes place tonight with several players representing the Texas teams. Marcus Semien makes his third All-Star appearance as a starting second baseman for the AL, while Corey Seager was selected as an injury replacement for Carlos Correa yesterday, making it Seager's fifth All-Star selection. Reliever Kirby Yates get his second All-Star selection coming out of the bullpen. For the Astros, Yordan Alvarez will be starting at DH, making it his third straight All-Star game, while Jose Altuve and Kyle Tucker will both miss a game due to injury. The American League will look to get back on the winning side after the National League ended a 9-year streak of AL wins last season. And that is your Horn Headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn Headlines. All right, let's get right to it. We got lots of audio here. Can we start with the Nick Saban audio? Nick Saban, he is going to be a master at this analyst, commentator gig that he's doing for ESPN. He already knows how to grab the attention because he said, I will just play the audio, but this audio, I think, is perfectly, phrased by him to ignite Longhorn fans a little bit and also to pump up SEC pride. He kind of hit the nail on the head here to be able to rile up both sides here, the anti-Texas fans and Texas fans too. Once again, a master class for Nick Saban. Must have learned it from Paul Feinbaum. Here's Nick Saban basically saying Texas, they won't have the same clout they did in the Big 12 in the SEC.
What kind of tickles me is all these people asking these questions about how Texas always ran the conference they were in. They're not going to run the SEC. Because there's a whole lot of arrogant people in a lot of places in the SEC, so they can forget all about it. Yeah. They'll be a good team and a great program, and Sark will do a great job, but that's not going to be a problem.
It's a little different.
And then to circle back with a compliment too. So in case some Texas fans were upset by it or offended by it, they're going to be a great team and a great program. Oh man, well done. Oh. Well done there, Nick Saban. That's beautiful. That's a masterclass.
It's not surprising that Nick Saban has spent as soon as he retired, started working on, all right, how do I phrase my takes? How do I have these things to go viral?
Yeah, yeah, he did. And it was. I think it was the first headline that really came out of SEC Media Days.
It was
the one. Actually, it was a Nick Saban related one, but I think it was the one about him being basically he was rebuffed at the entrance of SEC Media Days because he didn't have his credentials. So I think that was the first headline, Nick Saban related, and then Nick Saban dropping this line. First of all, some people are looking at this from a competitive standpoint. I don't think that's how he meant it. I think he meant it from an administrative standpoint, more like logistical, how kind of the Big 12, revolves around its two apex predators, Texas and Oklahoma. I think that's how he meant it, that, hey, they're not going to check with Texas every time they make a decision in the SEC. They did in the Big 12, they certainly would and certainly did. And I think that's kind of what he meant. But some people took it to, he's talking about competitive. And then they go to the Big 12 championships, and Texas has won, 4 in 28 years, 27 years. I had to go back and see when the Big 12 officially started. And then, of course, Oklahoma and its 14 Big 12 titles since its inception in the Big 12. So it's, I think he's talking about administratively, like that's what he's talking about. But he didn't specify. So, interpret how you will. And beautiful job. Like I said, masterclass, brother. He already knows how this hot take world works. Yeah. He got it. He's already got it down pat.
Yeah, because also I believe Nick Saban has picked Texas to be in the SEC championship game this year.
Yes, he did. He did. Yeah.
So as much as he's somewhat taking a shot, he's also like, I think they're one of the best teams in there. But I'm also going to make this, I know the viral thing I can say. He knows what he's doing. He's
beautiful.
Now, they need to tone him down a little bit because the biggest stories of the SEC Media Days from day one were both a retired coach.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. You may be right about that.
The SEC man to call and be like, hey, Nick, we get it. You're retired, though. Can we make it about this? Can we make it about the players and the teams? Because he's stealing headlines. He's doing it, but that's because he's a bigger name than
Exactly.
Than anyone else who's there.
Yeah. He's the big name. And so he's, like I said, they're like stars at SEC Media Days who are a part of the media, and you don't really get that at Big 12. That's kind of one of the differences in Big 12. Like Paul Feinbaum, Mark Ryan will be a star, and now Nick Saban as a part of their the media there at SEC Media Days, he's going to be a star. But it's just good because then Oklahoma fans got sucked in because Oklahoma was like, whoa, what do you mean running stuff in the Big 12? Yeah. They didn't run a damn thing in the Big 12. Let me show you these Big 12. So he just got it was just a beautiful job. He just got it. He just kind of trolled everybody. It was a good job there by Nick Saban. Okay, let's get to some more substance here. Talking about Texas. SEC ready is a term you're going to hear a lot. Is Texas SEC ready? Is Oklahoma SEC ready? And it's actually something that some of the coaches have been asked about. Do you think Texas, looking at their roster, the SEC ready? I love this quote by Brian Kelly. I thought it was actually pretty good. I thought there had some. It was very astute. And there's a lot of substance in it. So here's Brian Kelly talking about whether Texas and Oklahoma, whether Texas specifically is SEC ready.
What makes a school SEC ready, and what are some of the challenges Texas faces and Sark's build to get to this point?
Like if you take a snapshot, right? You take the Texas-Alabama game last year and say, well, they're SEC ready, right? I mean, they beat Alabama. But what happens is the guys in the front row that you talk to that year, they graduate. And so in the SEC, it's the ability to fill those seats again the next year. And then it's the ability to play the rigors of an SEC schedule week in and week out. So I think the medal is replacing those guys and then playing the rigors of that schedule week in and week out. So it's not just a snapshot in the SEC. It's really it's a long film. And if you can go through the rigors of an entire schedule, you're SEC ready.
Okay, yeah, I like that. He's basically saying if you have the talented depth on your roster to deal with, the week after week kind of physicality of a line of scrimmage league like the SEC. Just I'll give you one stat that'll give it some context for you. I brought up the blue chip ratio of Bud Elliott, and we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And basically, blue chip ratio is percentage of blue chips on your roster, 4- and 5-star recruits. And to meet the blue chip ratio, at least 50% of your roster has to be the blue chip ratio. Michigan was right at like 54%, just to give you some perspective on that. Washington last year, they didn't even meet the blue chip ratio. There's many 3-stars on their team as 4 stars and blue chips, but that's so I think that's just shows you development. You can get it done a lot of different ways. But Texas, since Sark has been at Texas, he's played 5 teams that meet the blue chip ratio in his time in the Big 12 as Texas coach so far, and he's 2-3 in those games. In the SEC now with the SEC schedule. Just this year alone, Texas is going to play 5 schools, and that includes Michigan on there too. So 4 in SEC play that meet the blue chip ratio. So you're going to, as many as he's played in 3 seasons, he's going to play 5, and once that basically have a like talent. Even Florida's going to be a disaster. Everybody agrees, coaching wise, but talent wise, they're going to be more talented than any of the teams you would see other than Oklahoma and whoever your big non-conference is preseason. You're going to play 3 teams in the SEC because Oklahoma's a part of that in the SEC that have as much talent or up there that have like talent as Texas's roster. So that's the difference. And you didn't see that in the Big 12. I think coaching wise, the Big 12 matches up against almost any of the power. It used to match up against almost any of the power conferences out there. I love the Big 12 coaches. They're really innovative. They're some of the best coaches in the country. Talent wise, there is a gap. And I think that's what Brian Kelly is saying. Is like, hey, can you do that year after year? Replace those high-end players, high-end blue chips year after year. Texas can do it. But then can you develop them year after year, deal with the injuries you're going to sustain year after year, and week to week be able to deal with that style of play and be able to deal with that level of play, which Texas didn't have to do that in the Big 12. And the games were still close.
Yeah, exactly.
They were still close. So it's that I think that's kind of what he's talking about. So I thought it was a good point there by Brian Kelly. Okay, let's get to Lane Kiffin's also was at he hit the podium too. And he was asked about Texas and their transition into the SEC and this roster. We know Lane Kiffin and Coach Sark are really close from their time, even going back to the USC days on the West Coast. Here's what Lane Kiffin had to say on the podium about Texas and their move into the SEC.
Yeah, I mean, they were in the Final Four last year, and a lot of players coming back and continuing to add great high school players and portal players. So I think they're one of the elite rosters in America. So I don't, Sark would know well the challenges, so it's not like he's coming with a team in the SEC with a coach that hasn't been. So I think he understands that, and that conference was competitive too, so he had tough games there and tough places to play on the road there. It's just different. And the SEC is really challenging. And I mean, study road records and study road records at night in the SEC. And why do those percentages change? Because they're really good players, but they're really hard places to play with electric atmospheres that are challenging to play in. So you come in this conference, you get that more.
Something else that I don't think we talk about enough, that the hostile environments that they're going to see. It is different than, and I was on the sideline with Texas for a lot of those games. Also was on the sideline when Texas went to Ole Miss, actually, speaking of Ole Miss, last time they went there. It's different than, the Little Apple in Manhattan, Kansas, and Stillwater. I'm not disrespecting those environments. Hell, Lubbock is a hell of a hostile environment. But I mean, they're just as hostile, and it just means more. I want to quote.
Well, and they're bigger. They're bigger stadiums a lot of times too in the SEC. So you're just going to have, bigger stadiums mean more people, which means it's louder. Which, it is what it is. There's just a lot of stadiums in the Big 12 are just not that big of stadiums. They had lower capacities, and so the crowds were extremely, amped up, and they were ready to go. But it's still, the difference between 40,000, 50,000, and 80,000. And that's what you'll get more in the SEC, because Oklahoma is one of those buildings, but then Oklahoma you never went to, and you're still not going to go to. So in the Big 12, it was really, you didn't play in that many major giant arena stadiums, and you're going to play in those in the SEC.
Yeah, because even the Cotton Bowl, which is hostile, you don't go to Norman. It's split in half. And what's the capacity of the Cotton Bowl? I don't know if it's that big. It's a big venue, but not compared to, I think, a lot of the big time programs in the SEC, or even Oklahoma are having to go on the road there. So in the Big 12, it's just different. I'm glad Lane Kiffin brought that up. Okay, another Lane Kiffin. This is a great Lane Kiffin piece of audio, though. He's talking about Sark. And actually makes a video game comparison here, analogy. Here is Lane Kiffin when he was kind of asked about what makes Sark so special.
Sark has really good balance, and I guess maybe in the video game things, it's like you keep hearing about the video game, like as you rank different areas and stuff, and some coaches are, you'd put these numbers by them, 99, whatever, in these certain areas. They might have lower numbers in these. I think he has really good balance where if you looked at him as a coach, like you do kind of teams, if that makes sense, like there's no weakness. I think he has really good player relations. I think he hires really well and evaluates coaches in that process really well. And he recruits great. So, and he's really innovative offensively. So I would say when I look at him, he has really great balance.
I agree with that. I've argued, actually, I agree with them 100% about the balance. I've argued sometimes too much balance. Right? Yeah. I always argue Sark doesn't play the hits. If it's a great play, and it works really well, do it again, execute it again later on in the game. Nope. Sark's like, no, I already used that. All right, I have to use that later. He gets back to kind of the balance of the playbook. and he wants to keep things fresh. I've talked about how he should be more extreme with concepts that really work. When you're in the Washington game and your second drive of the game, you score a touchdown because you're running the pony package for the first time in the game, and you run 7 plays out of the pony package, and you average damn near 10 yards per play. You should run it more than 2 times the rest of the game. And Charles like, nah, we're good. I already got that in the script. I already have it. I'm looking for balance. I don't want one concept or any one thing to be the focus of our offense, therefore giving the defense an idea of what they can focus on to take away, to neutralize. Things like empty formation, stuff like that. Like I've argued to be more of an extremist. And he exercises moderation. You know what I mean? Like in a lot of areas as a coach and a play caller. So I totally agree with him about the balance thing. I mean, he knows Sark really well. And I think that we're starting to get to know Sark really well, especially as a play caller and a head coach. Okay, so there's another piece of audio, a couple other pieces of audio I want to get to here. Can we get to the Jackson Dart one? Because this one is good too. My man CJ Vogel, shout out to On Texas Football over at On Texas Football. He was asking Jackson Dart, the quarterback for Ole Miss, asking him about his transition into the SEC. And for Quinn, what can he expect now going from Big 12 play to SEC play? What's the difference? At the end of this, I thought Jackson Dart may have hit the nail on the head. Here is Jackson Dart talking about quarterbacks transition into the SEC.
I look forward to him having a really successful year for himself as well.
Jackson, as a quarterback that had to make the jump from a different conference into the SEC, what did you learn about the conference, and what can these 2 new quarterbacks expect in year 1?
Yeah, I think from OU and Texas, first of all, they're elite programs, and they've always been that way. I think like the biggest thing is coming into the SEC, you're always playing against the best. You're playing against the best players in the country, and you're also playing against the best coaches. So you got to be ready day in and day out. You have to be well prepared because at any given moment against anybody, you can slip up and lose. So I think the biggest thing for me is probably just like the speed of the game kind of sped up a little bit, in the Pac-12 where I played. A lot of it was just drop 8. So you had a lot of time in the pocket to make decisions. And then it's not like that in the SEC. It gets on you pretty quick.
Any advice for Quinn Ewers?
Sorry, go ahead.
Any advice for Quinn Ewers?
Quinn's a baller. He'll be good.
Quinn's a baller. He'll be good. I kind of like that though. That's I like that analysis. He's a baller. He'll be good.
I like that.
But yeah, it's like I don't even want to get into that. He's a baller. He'll be good. Like, oh, he's a baller. I like that. Man, he got that dog in him. But getting to it kind of reminds me of getting back to the Lane Kiffin thing, talking about the environments. It's big on the road for a quarterback in the SEC. He's got to go to Michigan, but even some of those environments, like we talked about, yes, in the Big 12, Quinn went on the road, but it's a little bit different in terms of the investment that they make in the SEC for the home field advantage, as opposed to the investment that is made in the Big 12. It's just different kinds of money.
No, and I was just looking at the numbers of capacity. So now in the Big 12, the biggest stadium that they have is BYU at 63,000. The second smallest stadium in the SEC is Kentucky at 61,000. Wow. So the second smallest stadium would be the third biggest. Iowa State's at 61,500.
That's crazy.
So
man.
Kentucky is the second smallest. Vanderbilt's the only one smaller. Vanderbilt's at 40. Everything
Texas,
else is over 60,000 in the SEC. And then you get up to the ones that are in the 100,000s, like the LSU's and Ryan Denny.
And you don't have to travel really to any of those except the Aggie Land. Because I think Texas is traveling like the smoke. They go to Vandy, right? They go to some of the smaller. I wonder what Mississippi State is. Arkansas is probably pretty damn big, actually.
Let's see. Arkansas is only 76.
Oh, okay. It's not as big as I thought.
I mean, it still, again, would be the biggest.
That's still, exactly. It's like we say that it would be the biggest one in the Big 12, at least in the new Big 12. That's a nice factoid right there, Patrick. I didn't think that. See, that's a big difference for a quarterback going on the road. It really is. Okay, you know what? We have some more sound. We'll table that. Matter of fact, we can play it in behind the burnt orange curtain. We're talking Texas football, but I got something else I want to bring up though. Doing my off-season analysis for Texas, there was I've been saying that the only problematic area for Texas on offense last year was red zone. I think I was wrong. We'll talk about that when we come back in the Behind the Burnt Orange Curtain segment. It won't be too bad. I'm not doom and gloom. It's not doom and gloom, but it's just I think I was wrong saying that was the only problematic area that Sark needed to address in the offseason. There's one more area I think he needs to address. We'll get into that on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to go behind the burnt orange curtain and talk some Texas football. Okay, so I have talked about Texas issues in the red zone. You guys have heard me discuss it a ton on the show, and I even discussed what I think Sark how he's going to approach remedying the issue this offseason. There is another area actually that I think Sark's offense could stand to improve, and he could evolve as a play caller and a coach. And he's by the way he's a brilliant offensive mind and has done a great job. All right, so we're basically talking about going from great to excellent to championship level, because that's what the goal is, right? We're trying to go from being a Final Four team to being a championship team, get to the title, break through, and these are the areas you have to address if you want to do that. Third down offense. Didn't realize Texas was so average third down offense. Last year, basically, they were 70th in the country in third down conversions. I think they're converting here around, it says 38.3%. Last year, they were also, I think, around 73rd in the country, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, 73rd last year, 38.7%. So slight drop off, but nothing too concerning. But it's so weird in 2021. I believe they were top 30 team, I believe, offensively in third down offense. So weird that that it's not the same trend as a red zone offense, but a weirdly similar one, where in 2021 depleted roster in some of these key areas, red zone offense, third down offense, you were one of the top 30 teams in the country, red zone offense, top 20 team in the country. Actually, I think you were top 5 actually in the country. And then you know the roster improves, you improve as a team, you improve as a coach, everything gets better, and in some of those key areas there's a decline. So that I would like somebody either to ask him about it, or I'm sure Sark is going to address it, but like how he addressed it in the offseason. And because it basically was pretty, I mean, it was just pretty stagnant from 2022 to 2023, but you didn't see improvement. I mean, it was just a slight decline. So not like it fell off a cliff like red zone offense did, but it's an area going into the SEC against better defenses, going up against better personnel, against better talent. You wonder if Texas will improve in that area. They have to improve in red zone offense. There's nowhere to go but up. But in third down offense, you can't afford for right now, you're average. You can't afford to be below average. So you can't afford a drop off there. Like I said, you being 70th and then 73rd last year and right around 38%. And that could be fine. I mean, Sark's offenses are still really explosive, one of the most explosive offenses in the country. We're talking about going to a championship level offense. To be a championship level offense, I'm going to say that those two key areas Texas has to improve on: red zone offense and third down offense. If you want to be a champion, if you want to go from Final Four to title town, God, those I mean, that's money downs.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about what happened last year and how many, early on he was trying to go for it on fourth down a lot and then decided that, that was not working as well. But if you don't have bad third downs, there's two things. First of all, if you get closer to the line on a third down, that fourth down becomes easier to call to go for it because it's not a 4th and 3 and you think you can pick up 3 yards. It's a 4th and half a yard and you feel a little bit more confident in yourself there. But also you're putting yourself in picking up downs in 3 as opposed to trying to be a 4-down team that has to make that decision a bunch of times a game. You should really only have to make that decision a couple of times a game if you want to go for it or not. And it felt like last year there were too many times early in the season, especially, where he was making that decision. And that's where the third down, where maybe you're coaching it thinking I'm a 4-down team, and so it makes you a less effective third down team because you always in your mind say, well, there's another down if we don't get it. We only need to pick up 5 here because we have it, and you don't have that mindset of we need to get the first down. We need to move the sticks. We cannot put ourselves in a position to have to keep going for it on fourth down and, realizing what that cost rate, that risk reward ratio is. So it may be something to that effect of just changing the mindset where I know, especially early, he wanted to be a 4-down team or a 4-down team. He wanted to be able to go for it on fourth down. And it just didn't work, which is, somewhat similar to that red zone on those really, really big plays. He wasn't able to get it done. And that for Texas, you say, well, stop thinking of it that you're a 4-down team. Make that decision when you get there, but try and be a 3-down team. Try and pick up that first down and 3 and keep moving the sticks as opposed to running
on first down, knowing I'm going for the fourth down. So that influences your play call.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a deep shot on first or second. I'm going to run the ball on first or second, and then I'm going to throw an underneath route on third so that I know I'll pick up a few yards so I can go for it on fourth as opposed to playing, ahead of the sticks.
No, that's a good point. Sark is aggressive, so there's no doubt in terms of fourth down conversion rate. Texas is one of the, I want to say they're top 35 in the country in fourth down conversion rate. Fourth down conversion rate. So Sark could be, if you taking that into account, I could easily see Sark, and I haven't looked at how many of those are, in the red zone, close to the goal line, or where they are on the field. And obviously third downs are a little bit different in that regard. But yeah, I totally agree with you. I think Sark does consider that. So maybe we should combine the rates, and I can do that too. But then I don't have the comparison to the other teams around the country. So I can do some deep dive on that and try to get third and fourth down conversion rate together. So maybe that maybe a little bit more accurate for Sark, because that's just, as Patrick kind of mentioned, that's his mindset going into it oftentimes, because he really wants to be aggressive. So that may be a better indicator of it, but still, like I said, as long as you don't get a drop off, you're good.
Yeah.
As long as there's not a decline in third down efficiency, I think Texas is fine where they are. I just was surprised to go see that basically they've been an average third down team the last couple of years. Think about what they could be if they were above average third down team.
Yeah.
And the late great Bill Walsh would always say, hey, the best third down call is the one you don't have to make. Right, you don't even want to be in third down situations. You want to be, obviously have explosive plays on first and second down and avoid third down altogether. And that's kind of, something else that I think for Sark, that I guarantee you that's a big part of it. That's why he wants to take shots on first down. He doesn't want to see third down either. I do like that part about his philosophy, because he is aggressive. But like I said, I'd like to see a little bit of improvement in third down. Not a lot. I mean, just go from top 70 to top 50. That's a huge improvement.
Exactly. No, and that's it. I think it's just slightly changing the mindset of pushing it a little bit more to be not necessarily always gunslinging on that, in the first three downs, and especially early in games, he likes to gunsling a lot and try to get down. You can throw that underneath route on first or second, and then if you're going to go for it on fourth down, get yourself in a third and short, and then you can, if you're going to go for it on fourth down, take your shot then. But it just feels like there was times last season, and I think it got better as the season went on, that he wasn't necessarily thinking that way all the time, where it was early in the season, where he would put himself in situations to get into 4-down territory. But it's such a big momentum swing, as we just talked about the environments you're going to be on the road, that, it is a big difference of when you turn that ball over at the 50-yard line at some place. And I get, if you pick it up, you silence them, but you silence them for, 5 minutes. And if you got that crowd start going, especially to, even the first half, you just let them pick up all this momentum because you can't pick up that first down, and then you go for it on fourth and they get the ball at the 50, and you just let that team roll there with that momentum in some of those big arenas. And especially what Lane Kiffin was talking about, a night game, it's a little bit more dangerous. And that's where you just want to see, just pick up a little bit, a couple plays a game. That's all it is. It's not, it doesn't have to be a complete shift of, mindset or anything. It's just calling a few plays differently.
I totally agree. It's like I said, we're talking about the margins here, because where Texas is, they have proven themselves to be a championship caliber team. Now we're talking about a national championship caliber team, right? So that's the elite that we're looking for from this Texas team, and I think it can be in several key areas. Probably most of that improvement could be on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of it in the secondary, but I think offensively, there are some areas where you can see some growth. Another one is just looking at it. Remember yesterday we were talking about batted ball, so we're just talking about, Texas ends up in one-score games. In some of these one-score games, we're just talking about ways to win these one-score games. Hell, last year against Oklahoma, if red zone offense is better, you win that one-score game, right? A couple of third downs go your way. Hell, and even red zone offense against Washington, you win those games. And I think that's where Texas is. And you're going to have more. I think Texas was in one-score games last year, 3-2 in one-score games. Sark, since he's been here at Texas, 7-12 in one-score games, 5-7 in one-score games the last 2 years. Definitely going to have more of those in the SEC. If you had him in the Big 12, you don't have him in the SEC. And I think Texas is in a more of a position to close out better when you're up double digits and up 3 scores to maintain those leads this year, as opposed to the last couple of years. But I mean, it still is the SEC. So that's kind of what the discussion is, or at least where my mindset is in analyzing Texas now. Another area that I didn't realize Texas had some issues were fumbles. 4 Longhorns had multiple fumbles. Even without Ewers 5, Texas fumble rate, how about this? More than triple the SEC average. 16 fumbles, 9 recovered by opponents, which ranked in the back third of college offenses. Washington game.
Yeah.
Fumbles.
Fumbles. I know there was. I can't remember what it was. I know there was one where the ball got poked out from behind, and it was one of those plays where you watched, and I can't even remember what game it is now. It's been long enough that it's erased from mind, but I remember vividly watching a game and yelling at the TV, "Someone please tell him to hold the ball better. This ball's about to be fumbled." So plays like that, and I think you look at some of the guys and get in the weight room, and it'll help out. But yeah, I
no doubt.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree that is something that is going to have to be an emphasis of, what Sark's talked a lot about wanting to create turnovers defensively
Mhm.
and being big on that, which means when you're scrimmaging in practice and you create them, you're not holding your offense as accountable because you're really working on it defensively. And maybe it's in practice really having to hold your offense accountable for those because you're so focused on trying to get your defense good enough to do it that you're not thinking, well, crap, was that a good defensive play? Or did our guy just cough up the ball? And if we can do it, anybody can do it to us. We're in the SEC, this is not, everyone has the talent level we have now.
It's one of those things, but it's kind of, I always say the red zone issues, how did Texas go from, third in touchdown percentage in the red zone in 2021, fourth in red zone offense, and then plummet to 120th in touchdown percentage in the red zone, 90th overall in red zone offense. And I do think part of it is it's multifactorial, but part of it is a Bijan Rojo hangover because they were so good at breaking tackles in the red zone. And it was, put some Bijan on it with a side of Rojo.
Yeah.
You really could apply that to any situation offensively. And the red zone is one of those tough places to play offense because the area space is restricted and constricted, and you have a lot of, I think, advantages that flip over in favor of the defense in the red zone. And against ball carriers like Roshan and Bijan, a lot of those advantages were mitigated essentially. And I think if you're Sark now, kind of looking at it with the fumble thing, I'm trying to think about how often Rojo and Bijan fumbled. It wasn't very often, and they carried the ball a lot for you, of course, in terms of usage and target share and obviously the bulk of the carries. I think because they were such sound ball carriers, and now, not that it's a problem, but you're just seeing more fumbles than you saw with them. So this is also, I think, something that would be attributed to kind of the Bijan and Roshan hangover for Texas. And like I said, not that it's debilitating for the offense. The offense is still one of the more explosive offenses in the country, but we're talking about the margins, however thin, to go from being good, really good, to great, to excellent, to the best in the country, like championship level team. And I think like I said, the fumbles came back to haunt you in the Washington game, most inopportune time. So in some of these problem areas for Texas, in their only 2 losses on the season, these are the issues that ultimately led to them, not being able to win those games. And trust me, they were very close to winning those games. You're talking about game-winning drive situations, and that's another thing too. Game-winning drive, fourth quarter comeback situations. Those were opportunities to have game-winning drives and fourth quarter comebacks. And that's something else I think Texas will be tested on in the SEC, or at least this schedule, a little more than they have. But Quinn is actually pretty good in those scenarios. I believe he's 6-5 game-winning drive, fourth quarter comeback scenarios. That's really good. Go look at the NFL records of guys. Very few. I want to say it's like 4 or 5 quarterbacks that have a 500 record or better in those situations. That is not a place where a lot of quarterbacks thrive. Quinn's doing fine there, but I just think you'll have more of those types of games in on this schedule and in the SEC. All right, there you go. That's some Texas football conversation. We come back, we'll have the topic for the big fat poll of the day, and we'll get into the musically themed day of the week right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the horn.
Back on the Rodcast here on a Tuesday morning, and that means it's a Top of the Charts Tuesday where I will play you music that was number one on this day in history. Kicking it off with some Rolling Stones and Satisfaction. Easy, Satisfaction, Rolling Stones. Classic. It's always, people think it was an Otis Redding song because the rest of the album was all covers except for this one, but this was a Rolling Stones one, and then Otis Redding covered the Rolling Stones to do this song. But because of the time frame and then the Rolling Stones being around for the next 50 years, people just assume that it was they were covering the Otis Redding. But no, it was a Rolling Stones song. Let's get to
learn something new every time. At Top of the Charts Tuesday, I learn something new every time.
Let's get to the big fat poll today. Text line is open 512-447-3776, and we'll get this posted up on X at the Horn ATX.
Patrick's big fat poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, looking at what Nick Saban said about running the SEC, it was looking at conference championships in the SEC, and if you want to talk about running it as a football program and winning, Alabama did. I believe Nick Saban had 9 SEC championships since he took over in 2007. I believe it's 9. In 7 in the last 10 years.
It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, Georgia has 2.
Like the GOAT.
Georgia has 2 in the last 10 years. So as much as Georgia has been the dominant team for probably the last 5 years, they've still only won 2 national championships in the last 10. LSU has a few in there. Auburn has a few in the last 15, 20. But that's basically it. It's all the teams. It's those teams that have anything in the last 15 years.
King of the SEC. Talk about apex predators.
But Nick Saban is now dominating the media landscape by the SEC. He's no longer coaching, and still the top 2 stories that came out of SEC media days were Nick Saban. So, and Paul Feinbaum, did you see him try and catch into that?
I saw him say something about he had the worst time because of Nick Saban, something like that.
Oh, no, that one I saw, but I was saying Paul Feinbaum tried to make news. He said he would have fired Lincoln Riley already at USC. That was his.
Oh, I didn't.
That was his trying to grab the headlines one of yesterday.
Oh, I didn't see that at all. Yeah, see, yeah, that didn't cross my timeline.
No, Nick Saban stealing it.
Yeah, Nick Saban is stealing it. That's pretty. Yeah, that is a hot take. He'd have fired him already. Yeah, I don't know what Lincoln Riley's going to do about defense. That's not
in the Big Ten. But that does lead to the big fat poll of the day. Just see this, because I think there are people that believe that Texas fans think they're going to come in and just start winning right away, and that there's Texas fans that do not have that same concept that Texas is going to be the dominant force in the SEC. I'm sure some of you guys do, some of you don't. But this will be the question: how many conference championships will Texas have in the next 10 years? Last 10, Alabama had 7.
Oh, wow.
So how many conference championships do you think Texas will have? Since Nick Saban has 7 in the last 10, in the next 10, how many do you think Texas has? I'll tell you what I'm going to put on the poll online to make this a little bit easier, but you can give me the number, Rod. But I'll give you online. We'll have 0, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7 to 9. So I'll give you a range a little bit in there on the poll online, so you don't have to say it'll be exactly. But what do you got, Rod?
Man. I'll say this. I don't want it to seem like I am dissing Texas, but in 28 years in the Big 12, they won 4. Yeah. And the SEC is a different league. So I will, if anything, if you want to be optimistic and say Texas is going to win more than 4 in 10 years, you got 10 years.
10 years.
So going back to the inception of the Big 12, then you probably got to go to NIL and the transfer portal as being so beneficial to Texas compared to other schools. Yeah. And, obviously all the other changes that are coming to the new financial framework, they're going to be so beneficial to Texas compared to other schools that it will help finally keep Texas as a elite competitive brand. And Sark too, by the way. Sark's doing a great job. But I'm talking about even when Sark's done. 7, that's amazing that Saban was able to do. I do not see 7 in 10 years. I don't see that.
No, that's insane.
Kirby Smart's still there too. So no, I don't see that.
No,
I can see I would say this. Remember Peter Burns, who covers the SEC analyst for SEC Network, he covered the Texas spring game, and he said this Texas team reminds him of Georgia in 21, 22, and 23. So, maybe you'll get you a couple in the next 5 years, at least 2 in the next 5 years. So I would say if I want to go be optimistic, maybe 4 and 10.
So you would go between 4 and 6.
I'd go between 4 and 6.
All right.
And remember, the SEC title doesn't matter as much anymore. None of the conference titles.
No, because the playoff. No, because you're talking about playoffs.
We got playoffs.
Yeah.
So you still have a chance. It used to be like you had to, just to get in the conversation to be in the Final Four, and then obviously you had to try to be undefeated to get to a national title in the really old BCS system. But now, man, you got a shot. You ain't got to win the conference title anymore.
Yeah.
And if Sark will we'll give him some leeway that we didn't give Mac. Because if Mac didn't win the conference title, then you definitely didn't have a chance to play for a national title. And same thing with Sark, but now Sark has a chance to play for a national title even when you don't win a conference title.
It does, but I think there's also the fact that
back in the day.
You could be playing for a bye in week 1 of the playoffs too.
Yes, that helps.
And if you're the SEC and you're the power conference and basically we win this, we get the bye. That's huge.
It is huge.
Because that's not even like, well, we're going to play some of our bench players and just get mollywopped in the SEC championship game to give ourselves a rest. And we know we won't get a bye, but that's fine. We'll make the playoffs. But we'll rest our guys a little bit more. You still putting your guys out there.
Yeah.
So I think getting that bye, I think there's still stuff to play for. So that's the question. Big fat poll today. I'll get that posted up here in the break. How many conference championships will Texas have in the next 10 years? Already seeing some people come in. We're getting, the 1 to 3, 1 to 2 is a lot of people in that range. Not necessarily. I haven't seen anybody drinking too much Kool-Aid this morning yet on the text line.
That's good. That's good. Stay away from too much of the Kool-Aid, but you can sip. You can sip on it.
You can sip on the Kool-Aid.
I don't know how it tastes in the morning, though. It may taste a little different after you brush your teeth. I don't know if you want to be sipping on Kool-Aid like that. All right. Good stuff there from Patrick. We appreciate you, brother. The topic for the Big Fat Poll today. We'll get back today. Get that posted on X for you. When we come back, we'll dive into some NFL discussion. Execs around the league, some coaches, insiders. They're ranking all the positions, and they rank quarterback. I got to say, I think they disrespected my man Dak. Man, I think they disrespected Dak. We'll discuss it. We'll also get into an NFL, what could potentially be the NFL's biggest crisis behind what they're dealing with now with the lawsuit, which is going on, the class action lawsuit against them, and probably the concussion crisis. This is probably their third biggest concern about the future prospects of the league. So we'll get to that on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on more. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers here. Austin is a great city, and one of the reasons that the traffic is bad is because people keep moving to Austin because they want to call it home, and you can't blame them for that. As the city continues to grow and thrive, so do our friends over at Ironworkers Local Union 482. They're one of the reasons that the city continues to grow and thrive. Many of the iconic landmarks we love in this city were created and built by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local Union 482, like the Pennybacker Bridge and DKR Stadium. The folks over at Ironworkers Local 482 don't just go to the office. They're the ones who build it. So if you're looking for an exciting employment opportunity, or you want a refreshing career change, or you want a new challenge, or you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 482, and right now is the perfect time to do it. They're offering competitive wages, competitive benefits, and a pension plan, and they even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. Right now, they're hiring over 3,000 people for another big project here in Central Texas, and you can become one of these lucky folks. So right now, if you want to join Ironworkers Local 482 and take pride in the type of teamwork and craftsmanship that helps shape the future of our great city, just go online and apply today at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast, Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire, Patrick Davis, comes up with all the musically themed days of the week. But on Top of the Charts Tuesday, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. That's a nice little jam. I don't even know what that's called. It's pretty good.
Mama Told Me Not to Come.
Okay,
Three Dog
pretty
Nights.
Self-explanatory there. Okay.
Three Dog Night.
Who was,
also did Joy to the World.
Okay. Oh, all right. So not a one-hit wonder then.
No, I think they also did One Is the Loneliest Number. I could be wrong on that, but I think
All
they
right,
also
there you
did
go.
that one. But Three Dog Night, yeah, they had some cool songs.
Okay. Appreciate my man Patrick. Top of the Charts Tuesday. Always learn something new on the Top of the Charts Tuesday. Hopefully you do too. Hopefully you can also participate in the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. That will be posted on X at the Horn ATX. We'll get that posted for you pretty soon. But Patrick, so the folks out there can start to ponder the topic for the Big Fat Poll today, give it to the people.
I just got it up there. It is a big fat poll today.
Nice.
How many SEC championships will Texas football win in the next 10 years? I gave you options. I gave you 0, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7 to 9. I did not give you 10. Not going to be crazy, guys.
No, don't. Yeah, we're not going there. That's not necessary. Because that would be a run unprecedented in any major college.
I had to put 0 or 10, and I'm going to go ahead and put 0. I think 0 is a much more realistic number than 10. I'm hoping it's not 0, but I think it's a more realistic number.
No, trust me. Listen, I don't think like crazy 4 in 10 years is out of the question. I really don't. I know you had 4 in like 28 years in the Big 12, but I don't think people understand the power of NIL now and the transfer portal, how much of a cheat code it is. Think about what Texas would be going into the SEC right now at the D tackle position if not for the transfer portal.
No, and I mean we can say though we have no idea where the game's going to be in 5 years.
You also don't know, but you know it's going to benefit Texas. That's everything that's happening. It's benefiting Texas and schools like Texas. So it's not just Texas, but NIL and transfer portal. Listen, it is helping the haves and it is devastating to the have-nots. And Texas is a have.
Yeah.
Period. And so Texas will benefit more from that. That's why it's possible they could win as many Big 12 titles in like half the time. As many SEC titles as they did Big 12 titles in half the time because of NIL and the transfer portal. They just didn't have those resources, those advantages back in the day. And those are huge advantages. So about now weaponizing a donor base. And you can make the argument nobody has a more affluent, other than Ivy League schools, nobody has more affluent donor base in Texas. Period.
Yeah.
Sugar daddies, sugar mamas that are willing to spend the money and not get much return on that investment just so that they can maintain the standard of the brand and have their, and essentially have their alma mater, their institution always be considered elite in, sports and in other places as well. But obviously we're talking about sports here. And so I'm sure there are tax advantages into it and stuff like that. So I'm not saying there aren't some things that you get in return, some benefits to it. But in large part, right now where NIL is and that financial framework, by the way, I think it's going to change again. But right now, as a booster and a donor contributing to NIL, unless you're allowing those players and athletes to do a lot of advertising and promotions for you, I mean, you're not getting a true return on that dollar. That's just the reality of it.
Yeah.
This is more about being able to support your institution and being support your athletic department for whatever school that you represent. That's basically what it's about right now. Now there's remember the Lamborghini thing for Texas and how when Texas had the Lamborghinis outside of their recruiting visits and that went viral. Like that's ideally what you want if you're a company and doing an NIL deal with a player, you would like to get some free media and publicity and advertising from it. But right now, I don't think a lot of companies have figured out how to truly get the return value from NIL yet. It'll happen. Right now, everybody's kind of struggling with that. It's starting to more and more sometimes to feel like just pay for play. And it's like, so what are they doing in terms of NIL? I was like, they'll do some stuff. And it's like, okay. But I think it's actually really good for community outreach. It's doing a really good job because they basically the companies decide, all right, you know what, they're going to be part of our arm of community outreach. They'll just be out there in the community representing us, and we'll have them at different charitable events. So that is where it's really good. But in terms of companies I'm talking about and the actual boosters and the donors, the collectives and directives, them getting the return on it, they haven't really figured it out because I know a lot of these folks, but they are really enthusiastic about giving and helping.
Yeah, and that's what's funny is Phil Knight, as much as he's the guy who now says I'm going to do endless and all that, technically probably has the best return on investment for his, because the more Oregon is featured, the more Nike is featured.
Yeah.
So if he puts him in a national championship game, Nike gets more exposure as the team that's supplying the clothes and the outfit and then
when they become a great player in the NFL, they sign with Nike. And you get it back in it, you get it back again.
Yeah. So technically, he does have a little bit more return on investment than a lot of others because he is a owner of Nike, or at least a shareholder, honestly, whatever.
No, you're right. That's actually I don't know if anybody else that has as much of a right now progressive NIL wise than what he's doing. So I didn't think about that, but you're right, because then he gets it now the exposure at the college level, but if they are great players, and right now the word on the street is he's offering up unlimited NIL funds to bring in the best players. Then when they go to the NFL, who do you think they're going to sign with? They're going to be a Nike.
Well, I don't know. You asked Marvin Harrison Jr. about what Fanatics did for him. It may not work out that way always, too.
That's true. Sometimes you're right. It doesn't always work out that way, but at least you got a foot in the door. You should have an advantage. It doesn't always work that way. Yeah, sometimes Nike screws it up. They screwed up the Steph Curry one too. They screwed that recruitment up.
And now Nike's getting the bad rep because that's what they're blaming Jalen. Well, they're blaming they're blaming that's the reason why Jaylen Brown's not on the roster.
Is that one of the conspiracy theories?
Yes, is that he's not a Nike guy, and so Nike's like, we don't want non-Nike athletes on the USA roster.
Oh, that's a grassy knoll.
So that's like Trae Young, Kyrie Irving, Jaylen Brown, like those. So players that are not, or Nike guys that are not, they're on, and that's
not make sense.
Just one of the theories.
Makes sense.
It's one of the theories that is pretty prevalent right now.
I'm about to say, as long as the conspiracy theory makes sense, I'll entertain it. I'll entertain it. As long as if it don't make any sense, I'm like, get out of here. But I'll jump on the grassy knoll. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
Nike's got a lot of influence, man, especially internationally, which is where they're about to obviously embark. Oh, by the way, we'll talk about the scare that Team USA had. Okay, you're not worried about it? All right, so I want to give Patrick's thoughts about it. He's not worried about it. Patrick probably watched it, unlike most of us.
It was at 11 a.m. What else are you watching at 11 a.m.?
And Patrick could give you a Bronny James Summer League breakdown.
No, I'm not watching Bronny James a lot. Because he played at like 9 o'clock. The Spurs played at 9:30 tonight too. Like, come on, guys, help me out. Don't play 9:30 games. I'm a big fan of night games, but not when I have to do a morning show.
Well, it's like, you used to be when you
loved
you
it when
afternoon drive.
I stayed up all night. It was great, but now
it's awesome. Now, no, it sucks. Trust me. Anytime I'm up past 11, I'm so mad at myself. Oh. Damn it, man! Why are you up right now?
No,
go to sleep. You have to be up in 4 or 5 hours.
When it rolled over last night, it was 12:30, and I'm like, why? Why am I awake?
Why am I awake? I should not be awake. All right, there you go. Let's get to the Horn headlines, then we'll come back and we'll talk about Dak Prescott and where they have Dak ranked on this latest quarterback ranking. But first, let's get educated, updated, and informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, Teoscar Hernandez won the 2024 Home Run Derby, narrowly edging out Bobby Witt Jr. in the finals by 1 home run, 14-13, as Witt missed a home run in his final swing by a few feet. Hernandez had 19 in his first round and 16 in his second round to advance to the finals. Dolis Garcia just missed out on advancing to the second round with a first round 18, while 19 was the cutoff. And in the biggest surprise of the night, two-time Derby champion Pete Alonso could only muster 12 home runs in the first round before elimination. The MLB All-Star Game takes place tonight with several players from representing the Texas teams. Marcus Semien makes his third All-Star appearance as the starting second baseman for the AL, while Corey Seager was selected as an injury replacement for Carlos Correa, making it Seager's fifth All-Star selection. Reliever Kirby Yates gets his second All-Star selection coming out of the bullpen. And for the Astros, Yordan Alvarez will start at the DH, making his third straight All-Star game, while Jose Altuve and Kyle Tucker will both miss this game due to injury. The American League team will look to get back on the winning side after the National League ended a 9-year streak of AL wins last season. And that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you, Patrick, for the Horn headlines. We'll also discuss now who has become more of a household name than ever before, and I had never heard of her before today, Ingrid Andress, and her national anthem that went viral before the Home Run Derby. We'll get to that next segment if we don't have time to get to it here, but I want to get into this Dak Prescott conversation first. But yes, we will talk about it, and we'll play some of it too, just for you folks out there who haven't heard how she butchered the national anthem. My theory is they're trolling us. I think stuff like this, she's doing it on purpose. I just don't think she could have been that bad. I think you would rehearse that. Somebody in your circle would tell you that bad. I think she did it on purpose, but that's a theory that we'll get to. Another conspiracy theory we'll get to later. You got a theory on it too?
I did. We'll get to it. We'll get to it. Okay, so NFL scouts and NFL execs, they have been basically ranking. I think this is Jeremy Fowler's been doing it via ESPN, and they've been ranking
different positions all throughout the off season here, and I really hadn't gotten into any of them. They did defensive ends. They've done, because I don't say Michael Parsons has something to say about the defensive end and the edge rankings. They did wide receivers. They did all these different positions. But we've been talking a lot about, obviously SEC Media Days, and we've had a lot of different topics, so we hadn't gotten into that yet. But they did their quarterback rankings. And I was a little surprised. And this is a survey, like I said, Jeremy Fowler surveying NFL execs, scouts, and coaches across the league. I don't think, and they're anonymous, and he doesn't necessarily specify how many of them. They got Dak Prescott ranked as the 10th best quarterback on their list. I know. I was surprised too. After an MVP campaign by Dak, they had him 10th on this list. And we'll go through here just the top 10 on the list here for the Jeremy Fowler quarterback rankings. And I'll say this though, prior to last season, I think you could have made a case that Dak was right outside the top 10 and right at the edge of the top 10. I think after last season, you got to have him firmly in the top 10. I don't know where you'd put him. If you're going to put him in the top 5, that's on you, but it's like firmly. This is still right there on the cusp as a top 10 quarterback. So they got Jared Goff at number 9, Aaron Rodgers at 8, CJ Stroud at 7. They got Justin Herbert at 6, Matt Stafford 5, Lamar Jackson 4, Josh Allen 3, Joe Burrow 2, and Patrick Mahomes 1. So the question is, who would you have Dak leapfrog anybody? Would it be Jared Goff for you? Jared Goff is winning playoff games. I think that's why Jared Goff is getting the nod over Dak. I don't know if his statistics. I think it's more about the playoff games. And he's gotten to a Super Bowl. Like, he's won playoff games with multiple teams. I think that's why he's getting the nod. And I can't say that's, I'm not saying that I disagree with that. Just saying I believe that's why he's getting the nod over Dak.
I get that, but I don't even know if I think Goff you can move up a little bit, but they want to move him down. I don't have Matt Stafford and Justin Herbert as my 5 and 6.
I don't either.
I think he's 36-year-old, because we can say Aaron Rodgers still, like, we know that, like, some of those guys that are below it. If you want to tell me the two that seem out of place, it's Matt Stafford, who's 36 and has been injured the last couple of years. We know he's a good player, but I mean, we're going to say because he won a Super Bowl a couple of years ago that he is now a top tier guy.
Going off, it seems like then Justin Herbert doesn't make sense. If you're going off of accomplishments and you're going off of postseason success, then the Justin Herbert thing doesn't match up. That's why I think they would have given a nod to Jared Goff. Stafford gets that nod because, he's won a Super Bowl. Lamar Jackson's a 2-time MVP. So, I mean, your top 4, that's untouched. Don't even go there.
I do laugh at I saw the argument the other day, and it was like, is Joe Burrow second? And you're like, yeah, you can't even talk about first anymore. It's not a conversation anymore.
Yeah. You don't. We don't even. You're right. That it is. Remember, we used to have those conversations about who. It went from Brady, and then immediately to Patrick Mahomes, and we hadn't had a conversation about who's the best quarterback in the league, really. And man, it's been a long time. Like, because Brady had it for so long, and then I think we went to the Aaron Rodgers phase for a while.
Yeah.
And then now it's Patrick Mahomes. We really hadn't been debating that very often. You're right. It's kind of the tier is what we debate. What's the tier behind some of those guys? But I'm with you. I think Justin Herbert's the one that's out of place.
Look, and I'll put it this way.
Based on what you're doing, based on what I see, Justin Herbert's the one that he's the one that still you're going off of upside and potential. Yes. Everybody else seems to have proven himself to certain. Now, if you want to say CJ Stroud shouldn't be there, that you can make that argument too, because it's a 1-year thing.
Yeah,
I get it. Sample size. You want to go there? I would have CJ Stroud top 10, but they got him firm. They got him firmly in the top 10. He probably should be 10. Yeah, where Dak is kind of right now, and then maybe Dak should be, 8 or 9 right there. That's probably where it should be. But this is like a CJ Stroud conversation too. But it says more about CJ Stroud than it does about Dak.
And this is because I'm a firm Kellen Moore non-believer. But if we're going to say that Kellen Moore is the reason why Justin Herbert had a bad year last year, that offense didn't work and that was the reason, then that's what stunted Dak's progress for years, right? Then we saw that once he's gone and now Mike McCarthy's running it, apparently Dak's a better quarterback and he's growing now. that's you want to. I mean, if we want to sit there and do it, I just don't. There's guys on there that I would say, Dak, if you want to say last season, I get you can go playoff wins, but Herbert doesn't have that either.
That's what I'm saying. He's the one that doesn't belong. He doesn't have the playoff wins, and I don't necessarily think he's got. I know he's got some stats. I'll throw it out there, but I don't think he actually has the regular season success either. Because that's what Lamar Jackson, 2-time MVP.
Yeah,
CJ Stroud at the greatest rookie season for a quarterback in the history of the NFL. So that may be premature. Aaron Rodgers, accolades. Jared Goff, playoff wins. Dax, he's the one that doesn't have. He's got regular season success, but he doesn't have the playoff wins or accolades. I think Justin Herbert's the guy I would bump down to out. I honestly would bump CJ Stroud down just a bit.
Yeah, I bump him below Dak.
Yeah, I would have. I probably would have him below. Yeah, I probably would.
He's got to go earn it.
And
now, he can go prove it again.
Dak at 7 and him at 8.
Yeah, he can go prove it again this year. But yeah, and I mean, like it's that one of having Matt Stafford at 5 and Aaron Rodgers at 8, where if we're just going on what they've been able to do, Aaron Rodgers has had a Super Bowl in his past. He's a 2-time MVP, and I get he's 40, but Matt Stafford's 36. It's not like he's spring chicken, has dealt with a ton of shoulder injuries. So, again, I get where the upside is on some of these guys, but then you're saying, well, we believe Matt Stafford's still going to has a few good years ahead of him. And Aaron Rodgers is done basically, but he's still the 8th best quarter. I don't know. There's just some of those that don't quite make as much sense. But I guess there's some people that just probably, because they did the poll, I guess there's some people on Aaron Rodgers that were really low on him, and it probably dragged him down a little bit.
Well, it's exec scouts and coaches. So I think a lot of these guys are who would I want to be my quarterback.
Yeah.
And Justin Herbert, in terms of the measurables, he's your prototypical kind of dream and fantasy quarterback. Like he's got the big arm. I mean, he's big, tall, statuesque quarterback in the pocket, athletic. So I think that's part of it too, that he's kind of a lot of execs and GMs, kind of their dream quarterback. That's out there. And I think just the respect that some of these guys have earned, through facing them year after year from coaches as well. And then you got your scouts too, are a big part. So I think it's a multitude of different factors, but I would take Justin Herbert out. I would take Herbert out.
Yeah,
I would. I like him, but
he's just got to prove it.
Yeah, he's got to prove it. There are some other guys that I think, he was the guy that I would bump down. I don't know if you would want to put Purdy in there, so maybe I'd keep him there, but he's got to be at 10, and then Dak moves up, and then you can move CJ Stroud down just a little bit, but I would move Dak up. Dak should be firmly in the top 10, and that puts him maybe 8 or 7 potentially. And then you can, like I said, once you move Herbert out, you can kind of bump things around.
Can we
Dak should be higher than 10.
Can we conspiracy theory this, that the Cowboys sabotaged him and ranked him 30th in all their polls so that he could
I would love to see the ranking of the Cowboys.
So the Cowboys ranked him 30th so they could try and negotiate the contracts.
I would love to see what the Cowboys rank Dak. That would be great. That'd be fantastic if some of those that had leaked out somewhere.
Got leaked, yeah.
But no, I mean, like I said, I do think the CJ Stroud thing is interesting. I said, I'm a big CJ Stroud fan. I've given you guys the stats about CJ Stroud and how unique he is and how he throws the football downfield vertically as much as any quarterback in the league, but has a very low risk, high reward ability to push the ball vertically downfield. And, CJ Stroud, that 1 year was amazing. But I'll admit, you need to see it more than 1 year to have him as the 7th best quarterback in the league. So maybe they're just going year to year. And if they're going year to year, then Dak should still be even higher. If they're going year to year, they're not. Obviously, they're going off of, sample size, it seems. And CJ Stroud doesn't have, a large sample size at all. So I would bump him down just a little bit. I got more respect for Dak than that.
Yeah. And so, they said on the thing, he had no top 6 votes, not one.
Wow. That's crazy.
Not one person thought he was a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah.
Which means Dallas did not believe the Dallas people did not believe he was a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah. You know what? I don't think he's top 5 either.
I don't think he is either, but I'm just saying, if you're Dallas and you're voting on that and you're doing it, you still might say, I believe Dak's a top 5 quarterback.
That says a lot, though, that
Just
they don't
saying.
believe it. That's why they don't want to pay him like a
Just
top
saying.
five quarterback. It sticks with you though. This is why it sucks to go back to like school reunions, because even though it's been like 20 something years, people will still look at you and with the
Yeah.
same kind of stigma and whatever reputation you had in high school.
Yeah.
Oh man, she was slutty. And it's like, what? Dude, she's a mom of 3 now. What are you talking about? Like, what are you?
Can't keep her legs closed. I tell you.
Yeah, like, exactly. Oh man, that guy was a pothead in high school. It's like, well, he still may smoke, but now he's like an executive in a business. He's doing pretty well for himself. You know what I mean? They just still kind of throw these
Yeah,
labels
yeah.
out there. And the same thing is true for quarterbacks. If you want a first round pick, look at this list. If you want a first round pick, it sticks with you.
Yeah.
It sticks with you.
Yeah.
If you were a 4th round pick, that stench of he's just he's a mid tier middle round draft pick. He's not an elite. No, quarterbacks in the first round, they're elite. They got all the elite tools. Even when you've proven yourself to be elite in the league itself, I do think it sticks with you a little bit. I do. I think it stays. The NFL is that kind of league. First round picks get tons of chances. They get, oh man, they'll get first round pick will get, I'm not joking, they'll probably get 8 to 10 chances if they are if they are bottoming out in the league or they busting out in the league, they'll continue to get chances. If you're like a middle round pick like Rod B, you might get 3 or 4. You might get 3 or 4.
Well,
you better take advantage of those opportunities.
And that depends on the scouts who said that you weren't the guy from the beginning are going to always have that in their brain of like, nope, I was right.
Exactly. He still doesn't have it.
I knew it. I got it right 12 years ago. Called it. I know that he's been good since, but I got it right.
Exactly. Because all these guys are first round picks. The one they had to give up. The one they really did. They had to admit everybody was wrong on was Lamar Jackson. They just like, all right, we were, and he was still a back of the first round pick.
Yeah.
But the predictions were that there was no way he was going to work out as a 2-time MVP. But
Exactly.
I mean, all these guys are first round picks. I mean, they all had tremendous upside, and I think that sticks with you in the league a little bit. It always has, it always will. Kirk Cousins is probably like that too. People always say Kirk Cousins and Dak Prescott are very similar in their games.
Yeah,
the criticism it sticks with you. Brock Purdy, we'll see if he can somehow avoid it, but people are gonna be like that about Brock Purdy too. No matter if Brock Purdy wins the Super Bowl, they'll always talk about how limited Brock Purdy is as a QB. All right. So that's the Dak disrespect that I want to get to. All right, coming up next, we will get to the national anthem that went viral, but we got Rod's rant of the day as well. We'll talk about something that is concerning to a lot of NFL owners and to Roger Goodell. It's not the concussion crisis. It is not the class action lawsuit that they're dealing with right now. It's something else that's been brewing for a few years. And now the NFL, I think, openly is starting to discuss it. We'll talk about that when we come back in Rod's Round of the Day. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast, featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Davis coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to Rod's rant of the day. I want to discuss something that I've actually talked about for the last 2 or 3 years in the NFL. That the NFL now, I don't know if they're getting desperate to solve this issue, but I think now they're noticing that it's starting to become a trend. It could have been potentially a coincidence or an outlier at first. Now that it's happened over kind of 2 or 3 years, the NFL is going from noticing that it's a pattern to now it may be a troubling trend for them. And it's that scoring is down. Offense is actually down in the NFL. Offense is struggling. Defense is starting to win more than their fair share of battles in the NFL in a lot of different metrics. So if you look at combined points per game, offensive touchdowns per game, passing touchdowns, yards gained per touchdown, scoring drive percentage, red zone drive percentage, red zone touchdown percentage are all at 7-year lows. Lowest since 2017. And you start looking at the reasons why. I mean, if you're basically outside of, you have to go back to 2008 to find a season that had fewer passing touchdowns per game than the past 2 years. Outside of 2017, you have to go back to 2007 to find a season in which games averaged fewer offensive touchdowns per game than last season. And offensive points per play, lowest since 2009. And the NFL is trying to figure out what's going on, but it's actually just good defense being played. The defenses have done a great job of adapting. I think these younger, there's a great generation of DBs right now being produced. Go look at how many really good young DBs are out there in the NFL. I'm talking about guys who are like all pros as second and third year DBs. Hell, the Cowboys got a couple of them. Like they're second and third year in the league, they're all pros. Like Deron Bland, Trevor Diggs. They got 2 of them. Like Sauce Gardner was a rookie all pro, first all pro as a, I think first rookie all pro on the first team since Ronnie Lott. This is a really good generation of DBs. I think they have adapted to the darkness. I think the offensive cheat codes and all the offensive innovation over the last 20 years, couple of decades, that have really bombarded defenses and the rule changes. I just think now evolutionary adaptation, you have a young group of DBs who they don't play with fear of these spread systems and concepts because they grew up with them. They literally grew up like it playing against this in 7-on-7. For a DB like me who grew up playing against I formation and grew up having to take on fullbacks, hell, the spread system was shocking to me. It was like, damn. I mean, I loved it. I loved the challenge of it, but it was a bit shocking to the system. I wasn't a spread baby. I didn't grow up in it. These guys are spread babies. They're adapted to it. Like, you know how kids can grab a iPad and grab your phone and start just and going to work on it. You're like, how the hell does this kid know how to use his phone? I'm like, 2. How the hell they know? They never seen one before. They're plugged into the matrix. These young DBs, they're plugged into the matrix, man. You just put them out there, and they're spread babies. They just automatically adapt. They have a natural knowledge base of route concepts that we just didn't have. We didn't grow up with it like that. So they know and they react faster. That's part of it. But also there's a blueprint now, right? To defend offenses, these modern offenses. It's more 2 deep. I talk about it all the time. You hear me talk about it all the time. You have more 2 deep safeties, right? To put an umbrella on the defense, which gives you lighter boxes up front, which is why you need bigger humans in the defensive lines. We talked about that when Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat were being drafted, why their value was so high. So if you're going to play with a lighter box, fewer defenders than they have blockers, then you need human beings like Sweat and Murphy who are going to either demand a double team, war daddies, or they're so damn big they take up a gap and a half. Or they take up 2 blockers with their sheer mass and girth, and that is Tavondre Sweat. So you're going to play with lighter boxes, more 2 deep safeties, valuing D tackles a little bit more, less man coverage. Man coverage has pretty much dropped. The rates of man coverage dropped the last 4 or 5 years in the NFL. More nickel, but less dime, strangely enough. More nickel, but less dime. Stagnant blitz rates. Blitz rates are pretty much flat the last 5 or 6 years. You also get I think you get a higher rate oftentimes of zone coverage now too, where teams are trying to keep everything in front of them. So as a result of this new blueprint, defensive success rates are through the roof. Defensive success rate in 2023, say that 5 times fast. It was the highest it has been since 2013, third highest since 2000. Defensive success rate on passing plays alone, 57, almost 58%. That matched the highest rate in the 2000s, also 2013. So to slow down these offenses, they basically said, hey, you got to beat us throwing the football underneath, and you got to exercise patience to beat us. We're not giving you the chunk yardage deep play anymore. And that's why the explosive plays, they've decreased significantly. In 2023, there were just 9.1 passing plays that gained 9.1 passing plays per game that gained 10 yards or more. Fewest in a season since 2008. So you have fewer explosive passing plays. And going deeper into it, 2021, 2022, 2023, 3 of the 4 lowest rates of passing touchdowns off explosive plays, 20 yards or more. So your 20-yard plays of 20 yards or more that result in touchdowns, you've had the fewest rates of those in 3 of the last 4 years since they've been tracking it. It's so the defenses have figured out something. They basically figured out a recipe to force these offenses to march the length of the field. And like I said, oftentimes human error ends up becoming an issue. Somebody misses a block, a quarterback misses a throw, somebody gets a penalty, putting the offense behind the chains, and then the odds flip back in defense's favor. Looking at success rate, 2023, passing plays had their lowest success rate since 2013. And I don't know why, but teams are using fewer, basically the rates of fewer snaps of play action. The rates of play action are dropping. Play action is a cheat code. So is going under center is a cheat code. I went over this yesterday. I've talked about it forever. Yards per attempt when using play action compared to non-play action plays is 8.2 to 6.6. Yards per attempt when using play action against zone is 8.5. That's higher than those non-play action plays. Passes out of shotgun produce 6.8 yards per attempt, and under center is 8 yards per attempt. Yet teams are in shotgun more, under center rates are dropping, and as we've talked about, play action pass rates have started to drop overall in the league because teams are in shotgun more. So I think it's more RPOs, which it's just more quick game. So you're having teams that are throwing the ball more underneath throws, right? Because they're taking a deep ball away. And so the quick game now has become a big part of the passing game in the NFL. 60% of offense in the NFL is just quick game, 3-step drop, ball is out. RPO is a combination of the run game and the quick game. You got a lot more screens. This is a big part of Sark's offense, right? Sark's offense does reflect the pro style philosophy and where they're going because he has a lot of quick game, a lot of screens. He probably uses more play action pass than most of the teams in the NFL now because their play action pass rates are dropping, but his RPO rates are really, really high. And that is also, I think, contributing to the lack of explosive plays in the NFL because essentially that's just an extension of the running game. And defenses are doing a really good job of coming up and tackling in the open field with those concepts that are just trying to create one-on-ones out on the perimeter in the open field. And so fewer explosive plays are a big part of that. The passing game is changing, becoming more of a quick game. We talked about how rare it is for quarterbacks to throw the football vertically downfield yesterday with CJ Stroud, right? Because he's doing it as a rookie. Teams don't do that anymore. They usually result in more quick game and more shorter underneath intermediate throws, but he's chunking it vertically downfield. You don't get that as much, especially when they put those two safeties deep back. But also sacks, right? Sacks are increasing. That is, if you look at data metrics in terms of what affects efficiency, what has a negative effect on efficiency offensively, sacks are the second worst thing behind turnovers, right? Turnovers is the worst thing you can do offensively. But a sack, at least based on the data, is probably the second worst thing that can happen to an offensive drive. And over the past 5 years, That's why sack avoidance. We talked about that. All right, around the draft time, we've talked about it with Quinn Ewers and Patrick Mahomes is so great at sack avoidance. That's why it's such a big thing, because sacks have actually gone up. 7.1 sack rate last season, highest in the NFL since 1998. Because your D linemen are becoming way more athletic, because now they have interior D linemen like Savondre Sweat and Byron Murphy who can be elite run stoppers on early downs and be elite pass rushers on passing downs, in addition to the freaks on the edge. So this is the first time the league has had back-to-back seasons with 7.0 or 7% or higher sack rate since 1997-98. And the quarterbacks, if you go look at it, this season, and they're more athletic than they've ever been. Patrick Mahomes is probably the best quarterback at sack avoidance in the league. Matter of fact, he is. Since entering the league in 2017, he has taken the sack on just 12% of his pressured dropbacks. That's the lowest rate among all qualified passers. The league rate over that time span is 19.6%, almost 20%. He's at 12%. So he is elite at sack avoidance. Quarterbacks are more athletic, but they're not avoiding the sacks as well as you would think. So sack rates increasing are also killing drives. And over the past 5 years, avoiding a sack more than doubles the average points per drive and more than triples the percentage of drives that end in a touchdown. Sack avoidance. It's big. It's huge. If it's not something, and I think it's natural, I think it's innate. I don't know if you can teach it. I think you can improve on it like you can anything. But I was talking to Coach Bob Shipley about this, and I think he made a great point. And he was implying you can't really teach that. That's something guys just have naturally. The ability to avoid pressure. Think about Michael Penix and the way he felt pressure and didn't look at it. That's natural. You don't teach that. That's a natural skill. That guy was hurt for 2 years. You would think if anybody be skittish in the damn pocket with pressure, it'd be that dude. But he ain't. Some guys have that naturally, some guys do not. And I'm not saying it will make you less of a quarterback, it'll make you less effective. And Patrick Mahomes just has it naturally to avoid pressure. He just does it really, really well. And so I think that's something that now there is a data point when they're evaluating quarterbacks. Can they help you with sack avoidance? But that's a big part of why offenses are declining in productivity and efficiency as well, are the sacks too. And can't forget about this factor. And the NFL's freaking out about this factor too. So it's 17 games. They're going to go to 18. It's going to happen. You might as well get your mindset right now. They're going to go at 18 games. It's the NFL's Players Association. They're just a bunch of pushovers. Their players union, a bunch of pushovers. It's just going to happen. So when they go to 18 games, the big issue the NFL's dealing with right now is O-line depth and quarterback injuries. And I guess you can say both, right? Quarterback injuries in depth and O-line injuries in depth. So since they've gone to 17 games, they've noticed the amount of quarterback injuries has skyrocketed. It was still trending that way before they went to 17 games. But since they went to 17 games, the amount of quarterbacks who are making starts, since adding that extra week to the season, you've had your 3 largest totals of quarterbacks making at least one start in the NFL season. It was on the rise before that. You guys know I've been keeping up with it, but you had 66 last year, 68 in 2022, and 62 in 2021. You hadn't reached 60s in any year before that in quarterback starts. You get 18, you're gonna get to 70. There aren't that many good quarterbacks alive in the world today. Even if you got the really good ones from college, there just ain't that many that can play at the highest level in the NFL. So naturally, your productivity and efficiency are going to drop off when you have to play a backup quarterback. And how about a backup quarterback behind a injured and mash unit of an offensive line? And that's also something to consider, is that look at the Texans, right? Texans last year had the most injured O-line in the NFL. And that's a big part of why the miracle of why I think CJ Stroud is going to be even better this season, because that O-line I think has to be healthier. But if you go look at combination of offensive linemen, how about this? Just 9 NFL teams had their most frequently used offensive line combination on the field for 50% or more of their snaps. Just 9 teams. That's it. 9 other teams were below 25%. And only 2 of those teams, the ones that had basically their most frequently used offensive line for 25% of the snaps or less, only 2 of those made the playoffs, Houston and Miami. It's a good sign for Miami too. So in 2022, 11 teams had their top combination of offensive linemen on the field for 50% or more of the snaps, and just 5 teams in 2021. Well, more games, you're going to need more O linemen. And the problem is not that they don't have enough O linemen like quarterbacks. The problem is not supply. The problem is development. There's not enough good O line coaches out there to coach all of them. So they got bad technique and a disruption in the development of these offensive linemen. And more of them have to play earlier because usually you'd sit them down for a while. All right, you know what, O lineman, you sit here for a while, kind of like Texas is doing, ideally, and let them develop and let them, learn, the speed of the league and let them learn some basic fundamentals and not develop the bad habits, good habits. But they can't do that because they got to play. Got to play right now. There is no development anymore. Got to play right now because the guy in front of you just got hurt. And offensive line injuries are increasing more and more. So all of that stuff is contributing to I think the decline in offensive production and in the NFL level. But the NFL now is starting to think, okay, it's not just an outlier, it's a trend. Something's happening. And I think it's ultimately just good defense. So I think it's going to change. They're just going to change the rules a little bit more and tweak them to help the offense, which they already done. That kickoff return rule, that's helping the offense, guys.
Yep.
That kickoff return rule, change the kickoff return so they get better field position. That's help the offense. They're going to do something else too. If it doesn't turn around this year, they're going to do something else. They cannot have the #1 TV show in America start to become defensive showdowns without offense. Fantasy football is about offense. You want to see quarterbacks. You want to see points. Shig did the long ball, and the long ball is going away. The NFL will fix this. And I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just telling you what's going to happen.
Yep.
It's already happening. All right. Good stuff. We come back. We'll get into what the facts, what the stats right here on the Rodcast. Also, yes, we will get to the national anthem that was this went viral because of how much it was butchered. We'll get to that too. I promise you we'll get to that on the show as well. All of that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers here. Yes, even with the traffic, Austin is still a great city. So even if you're in traffic right now, you can appreciate the city continues to grow and thrive every day. And many of the iconic landmarks in this city that we love were actually built by the skilled craftsmanship of Ironworkers Local 482. And they're one of the reasons that this city continues to grow and thrive because they continue to build and continue to add to the growth and contribute to the growth of this great city. So if you're driving by the Pennybacker Bridge right now or DKR Stadium, you're driving by one of the landmarks that my friends over at Ironworkers Local 482 helped to create. And right now they're constructing another big project right here in Central Texas, and they need your help. They're hiring over 3,000 people for this big project. They're offering competitive benefits, a pension plan. They even offer training for unskilled labor through their apprenticeship program. So right now it's the perfect time for you to become a member of Ironworkers Local 482. If you're thinking about an exciting employment opportunity or a refreshing career change, or you want a new challenge, or you want to feel valued by your employer, you can become a valued member of this prestigious organization, Ironworkers Local 482. So go online today and apply at ironworkers482.org. That's ironworkers482.org. All right, time for what the facts, what the stats here. I got a couple of them for you. So how about this one? What the facts, what the stats. Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever have a combined 2024 attendance, home and away, of 409,217. That is a new single season WNBA record, and they aren't even at the All-Star break yet. So they're just shattering records, attendance records in the WNBA. And yeah, that Caitlin Clark effect, it did not die down. A lot of people thought it would die down, or that was the conversation, but it is very much still thriving right now, and the WNBA is benefiting from it. Another factoid here: Greg Sankey did announce the partnership they have with Apple now to introduce iPads on the sidelines for SEC football games is going to start this season. So they're going to have iPads on the sidelines, I guess, to help with adjustments. They'll be able to, real time, be able to break down film on the sideline. Not sure what the restrictions are going to be about this, but remember, they also can use headset communication now.
Yeah. But instead of having to print out
whatever,
like with the old school ways, you print it out the
print
defenses.
out, dude. I used to the dry erase board, so that print out would have been nice to have. We had the dry erase board, coach marking it up. All right, and you got coach. No, the tight end was flex. Oh,
no, but have you seen like that when they're showing the quarterback and they'll print out the previous like
oh
the
yeah,
reads and stuff?
Now that's actually, I said that's next level for us. It was still dry erase board.
But right,
coach drawing it up for you.
You're just old now. That's not next level. That's old level still.
That's old, man. Damn, think about that. They got iPads now watching the actual play itself, and we had a dry erase board and like 3 guys to testify. Like, all right, on the right side, it was twins on the right side, and then remember he motioned back into the backfield. Okay, we got there. All right, and it was on the other side, it was a single receiver on the other side. I think it was 21. Yeah. Oh God, think about how inefficient that was. On the sideline, that was time we wasted. Now everybody got an iPad. You just look at it and go, okay, yeah, we got it. Okay, good. Oh man.
Oh, that wasn't twins.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah. And then think about the guys who misremember. Yeah, exactly. Some guy misremembered or something because he just didn't see it correctly, and everybody's messed. Oh, the human error. Oh man, it was fun, but much less chaotic now. Good for the guys, and now they have the headset communication, so there should be less lost in translation this year. Okay, there you go. Some factoids for what the facts, what the stats. I got some more, but we'll save those because I want to get to a lot coming up next segment. We'll get to SEC Media Days, a lot of sound, but we also got to talk about the national anthem before the home run derby that went viral. We'll play that for you. We'll play as much as we can before it becomes unbearable. We'll do that on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Rivers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a top of the charts Tuesday. That's when my co-host, the Idealionaire Patrick Davis, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. That's a little jam right there. Afternoon Delight. I agree. Great. We've talked about it before. I don't know why everybody waits to the end of the day to get intimate and get it on when you can do it. You can do it in the middle of the day. You can do it right there afternoon. Boom.
It's just such a weird song about banging in the middle of the day. It's just,
exactly.
It's just like if you just heard that what type of music this is, you'd be like, "Oh, what's that song about? Picking flowers?" And
it's almost like a folk song about banging in the middle of the day.
It starts off like within the first 10 words. It's like, "Why are we waiting all night? Let's get this on."
I agree with. I totally agree. I've had the same opinion. I agree. Why are we waiting till everybody's tired at the end of the day at night when it's dark? No, I mean, let's do this in the middle of the day when there's lots of light out and everybody's full of energy. Let's go. I'm for it. You know what? They got to bring it back. Somebody should remix that song. Should do it like a.
They did. I mean, they did. I mean, they did on Anchorman. Anchorman did it. Remember?
Yes. No, you're right. They did do it
and brought it back.
But yeah, no. Like I said, I agree. I agree with the sentiment.
Do you know what the band name is?
No, what is it?
It is the Starland Vocal Band, I believe. Yes, the Starland Vocal Band.
They're not a one-hit wonder, or they got more hits
is
in this?
This is. I mean, what other song than that
is it?
Possibly that they did.
Do they have the basically was there? Was their downfall coming up with freaky folk songs? Like, what was it? Was they picked the wrong genre? They were like, "Hey, man, that's just some freaky stuff, but let's do it in this weird, like, folksy
let's do a
way.
Let's do a song about how the back door is nice to come into sometimes."
Exactly.
Too. All right. Well, Starland Vocal Band.
And do it and try to do it in that little folksy way. It's like, maybe it's more palatable that way. It's like it worked though, because that song has actually. You're right. They brought it back with Anchorman, but kind of stood the test of time there, man. Like I said, I agree with the sentiment. I don't know why everybody's waiting till nighttime. We got the daytime. If we got some time, let's go. I mean, come on now. We're not trying to make this. Not trying to be here all day.
Now, let me ask you.
Till lunchtime, let's get on it.
Do you think the Starland Vocal Band has done the national anthem?
They definitely have done it at one point. When that song hit, they did.
They had to do it. They had to do it there.
They do it somewhere. So I don't know where they did it, but you're right. And they did their own like folksy version of it. Okay, so
here's to sing the national anthem. The band who's popular about singing about afternoon hookups.
Which, I mean, it had to be. What year? Do we know what year that was? That's in the 70s, right?
76, I believe.
Yeah, that feels like a mid-70s song. I just wonder at the time. Well, I guess they were. Yeah, there was some freaky stuff coming out back then, though. When did Marvin Gaye put out?
There was, but it just wasn't. It wasn't.
It wasn't in that tone, though.
Yeah, this tone feels. It's all about the tone of it, and that's what it feels. It feels off. But
it does. No, you're right. It feels a little. I agree. There's a bit of a weird factor to it. And a cringe factor just because of how the melody.
Yeah, it's like when you realize your really shy, quiet neighbors are actually freaks, and it's like it'd be like that.
And it's like,
where you're like, I mean the Joneses? The Joneses are doing that?
Yeah. No, it is. It's a bit shocking when you break it down. All right. We'll thank you, Patrick, for the top of the charts Tuesday. We'll also get to go check out the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. Matter of fact, we can get that out of the way as well. Patrick, let the people know what the topic is for the Big Fat Poll today.
Big Fat Poll of the day today. How many SEC championships will Texas football win in the next 10 years? We know Nick Saban said that Texas will not run it. Now, we don't know. We're not saying that he said that, but Nick Saban kind of maybe took a little shot at it. Some people thought he did. So I wanted to see Texas fans, because I felt that he was implying that Texas fans too really think Texas fans are walking in going, no, we're about to dominate. We're about to dominate. It's Texas fans. And so I've asked.
Some of them thinking like that.
Some of them are, but if we're saying, we asked how many. I put up the 0, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7 to 9. 1 to 3, dominating it right now. So people are not being unrealistic. There is some people that said 7 to 9. It's pretty ambitious.
Yeah, that 4% said that. I ended up voting 1 to 3. Some people said 4 to 6, and he said you're talking about 10 years. So 1 to 3 that's reasonable.
Yeah,
I think that, especially in NIL transfer portal era, in fact, that's more than reasonable. It's actually, I think that should be closer to standard. Every 3 years, you're talking about winning an SEC title.
Yeah. I mean, Auburn has 2 in the last 15. That's Auburn.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that, but I think Longhorn fans still have a little bit of, trauma from their Big 12 days where they only had 4 in 28 years.
Yeah.
But different era, different coaches,
yes.
all that. Yeah. But not that Mac Brown wasn't a hell of a coach too, and Mac Brown couldn't break through enough to satisfy Longhorn fans. All right, good question there for the topic for the Big Fat Poll today. We have to dive into this national anthem before the home run derby that went viral. We'll do that here after we get the Horn headlines, and then we'll play you all the audio from SEC Media Days. If we don't get to the entire selection of pieces of audio, we will get to it in Behind the Burn Orange Curtain, continue our Texas football conversation. So we'll got you covered. SEC Media Days, but we haven't discussed the viral sensation from last night from the home run derby that stole the show, unfortunately. So we'll get to that. But first, let's get educated, updated, and informed on all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn headlines.
All right, your Horn headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, Teoscar Hernandez won the 2024 Home Run Derby, narrowly edging out Bobby Witt Jr. in the finals by 1 home run, 14-13, as Witt missed a home run in his final swing by a few feet. Hernandez had 19 in his first round and 16 in his second round to advance to the finals. Adolis Garcia just missed out on advancing to the second round with a first round 18. 19 was the number to beat. And the biggest surprise of the night, 2-time Derby champion Pete Alonso could only muster 12 home runs in the first round before being eliminated. The MLB All-Star Game takes place tonight with several players representing the Texas teams. Marcus Semien makes his third All-Star appearance as the starting second baseman for the AL, while Corey Seager was selected as an injury replacement for Carlos Correa yesterday, making it Seager's 5th All-Star selection, 3rd with the Rangers. Reliever Kirby Yates gets his 2nd All-Star selection coming out of the bullpen. For the Astros, Yordan Alvarez will start at the DH, making his 3rd straight All-Star Game appearance, while Jose Altuve and Kyle Tucker will both miss the game due to injury. The American League team will look to get back on the winning side after the National League ended a 9-year streak of AL wins last season, and that is your Horn headlines.
All right, thank you for the Horn headlines there, Patrick. We appreciate it. Okay, so we'll get to the SEC Media Days audio here in a couple of minutes. But we got to talk about this home run derby national anthem. You just talked about the winner of the home run derby, and I saw fewer headlines about that. I saw more headlines about this young lady, and I got to tell you, didn't even know who she was before last night. Ingrid Andress, 4-time Grammy nominee and country singer. And the national anthem, matter of fact, we'll just play it, and then we can come back and discuss it.
We'll play the first 45 seconds to a minute. I think that's all we need.
Okay, yeah. We'll play. You'll have to play whenever it becomes unbearable for you. As soon as we get an idea of how bad it is, you can stop.
Let's play this way. We'll get about 20 seconds in, and you'll be like, "It's not that bad," and then it goes very south very quickly, and then
it does. That's what I thought too. I was like, why are people saying this is that bad? And I go, oh.
It drops off a ledge, and then it doesn't get much better throughout the rest of the way. But here we go.
With broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there.
All right, that's enough of that.
You don't want to get any more. No, it gets way worse after that.
It does not get worse. That is how bad it is the rest of the way. It is.
gets, like I said, it gets a little bit worse after that. It just continues to disappoint. And I'll say this, because I don't know, how well she actually can sing, because I have not heard her. You said you listened to some of her stuff.
Yeah.
She's a 4-time Grammy nominee, so I'm sure she's talented country singer. I think her people told her to bomb it. I do. I think these days, her publicist told her, you'll get more attention from, girl, if you do a good job, nobody will care. There are national anthems being sang all over this damn country every damn day at sporting events, and they're doing an amazing job. And you know what? Nobody cares, and nobody's talking about it later. You want to go viral? You got to bomb it, girl. That's how you go viral. You bomb it. And did y'all have to Google search her? Did you search for her? Yes, we did. Did Patrick listen to a couple of her songs? Yes, he did. That's the way to go. Remember my formula: shame to fame, fame to fortune. I know people are like, "That's her. Why would you do that?" Because we're talking about it right now. We're talking about what's her name? We're talking about Ingrid Andress. Why the hell would we be talking about it other than that?
So here's what here's what I believe. I do think there may have been people involved who knew she was going to bomb it. I don't think she did. I think there's a couple pieces. One, I don't think she can hear. I don't think she could hear herself. That typically, when you're that far off, because she's not doing a weird style or something like that, or she's not doing it where it's like, hey, let's make this go viral. She just sang it poorly. She didn't do anything special to it. She just couldn't sing it. And so I don't know if you do that where you're like, hey, just suck at singing, and that'll make people want to see you sing. If you say, do something absolutely crazy. So on the 5 minutes of her music I listened to, she goes really high in a lot of it. Do a bunch of it high. And everyone would still be like, what was she thinking trying to sing that song so high? And it still would have been viral, but she wouldn't have had to just be completely on a different note and a different pitch the whole time. So part of it is that, but also I know how the country machine works in Nashville. And by no means am I saying this applies to every country artist. No means I'm saying, but there is a lot of country artists that are put into a machine, and they're basically brought out because they're people who will sign contracts, signing away a ton of their rights and a ton of the money. And these labels can bring them in and basically feed them songs. They will pitch correct them, do whatever they can, and just push them out. And if they get a hit, great. And then we own everything. You own nothing. And so we'll run you until you run out of steam, and then you're next and out of the way. You make no residuals. You make nothing. And the machine just keeps on cranking, right? That's how there's a lot of that in Nashville. It just is what it is. Okay. I've seen it happen enough times. I've seen people go play with bands like, yeah, it sucks. Because basically a guy will walk out and go, man, all my dreams are coming true. And they went, you went to number 14, not high enough. You're cut. Label's done. You can't sign anywhere for the next 5 years. And so your music career is over. And I've seen that happen to enough people that there is part of that I could believe she was kind of on the back end of it. And they said, well, let's go out there and stick her out there. And they go, well, she can't sing, right? Like, we fixed this in the studio. Like, she's not good enough to do that. And they go, okay, tell her not to practice. Like, let's go out there. So I could believe there's people that wanted her to be bad. I don't know if she did. I don't know if she's in on the joke or the plan. I don't know.
I'm just, it could be that too. I'm just saying inside job. Like, I don't think somebody knew she was going to be that bad, or she knew she was going to be that bad. Publicists, they know. No way she got up there and they were like, oh, dude, she's going to kill it. And she just was that bad.
No, I have friends who booked for the Austin FC. The national anthems, and there's a process to go through to make sure you can do it and everything. There's a process. You're not just pushed out there and you do it.
For the All-Star game. So I think this was not, I don't think Major League Baseball, but I think somebody, like you said, maybe they set her up, but ultimately I think this is somebody trying to squeeze out some promotion and marketing for her, because they know otherwise she wouldn't get any attention at all because of her national anthem.
Now, see, this is what
she's the infamous star of this home run derby now.
Now, I will say though, this is what you need to do if you want to do that and you want to go viral to do it. You don't want to be Carl Lewis. You don't want to just be bad at singing if you're a singer. But you want to be eccentric and you want to be crazy. You want to Fergie it. You want to do what Fergie did at the 2018 NBA All-Star game, another All-Star game. Fergie did the national anthem. I will play you a clip of it. This is my favorite part of it.
I love this, actually.
This is Fergie, where she's not missing notes. She's just Fergieing it up. And here's Fergie doing the national anthem, a piece of it from 2018 All-Star game.
Get through the night.
That is how you Fergie it.
That was honestly, that was well done by her. It really was.
See,
I remember that moment too.
That's the way you can be like, look, I can sing. I can hit all the notes. I'm just going to hit random ones you don't think I'm going to go for.
I'm going to. Yeah.
And that, it will be more viral forever because that is insane that she was like, I'm going to go do this with a smile and just everyone is going to be like, what is happening?
No,
versus last night,
she made every player on the roster laugh on both sides.
Yes.
Like everybody was in there just about to just
so
gut busting.
If you're gonna try and go viral for the national anthem, don't Ingrid it and just be off pitch the whole time. That's just Ingrid in it. You want to Fergie it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's a great take. You want to Fergie it up. Fergie it up is the way to go because it puts everybody in a better mood. We're not ashamed. We're not embarrassed for you. With Fergie, we were like, honestly, Fergie, she thought she did a great job. Like, Fergie's like, I killed that. I killed it. Nobody could tell Fergie different. It was like, okay, girl, you definitely accomplished what you set out to do. You accomplished that. I just don't know if we enjoyed it, but I will say this. Honestly, I remember when they basically, you remember when the players like songified that and turned it into like a thing they would play in the locker room?
Yeah.
You remember that? Even like the Warriors were playing it. It did the players almost like they took ownership of it. It was almost like something like those 80 movies that were so bad they're good.
Yeah.
It was like that. It was so bad it ended up being kind of good. You're right. It was weird that way. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what I'm saying is if you're gonna do it, so like there's songs I listen to. This girl sings like really high because basically her main thing is she sings how she started it. And everything's kind of that, it's not really sultry, but it's supposed to be sultry kind of voice. And that's the voice she does most of her singing in, and there's not a lot of range in it. And there's not, I mean, the national anthem is not an easy song. I've heard people sing it poorly before.
No, it's not.
And there's kind of tricks that people do when they sing it poorly, and she didn't do any of those either, which is normally what I think it was something where she couldn't hear herself. So she didn't realize how bad she was. And then when she heard it a little bit through the stage, she's like, well, that sounds wrong. But like you've been on a stage before at a point, right? And you've been talking, you're like, I can't hear myself at all. And I know I'm blasting through the PA because everyone's reacting like I'm yelling in their face. Yet I can't hear myself at all.
Yeah, no, that could be it too. Or I don't know. I think she was set up for failure, or I think she was in on it and they knew she was going to be bad. There's no way people thought she was going to be good singing the national anthem. Even with your description of her voice, she was not going to be good.
No,
she was not going to be good. Not for the home run derby, for a game, just a regular game during the week. Yeah, throw her out there. Great. Every time at the home run derby, it's not where you got more eyeballs than usual. And you got people that come to watch home run derby who are not necessarily baseball fans. They're fans of pop culture.
Yeah.
And then that's what you give them. I don't know. I think they knew. They knew.
No, and,
all right.
And that's just a message to everyone who books anything in Texas that has country music. And I'm not a country music person. But stop booking Nashville country in Texas. There's a million Texas country bands. And bands that are popular and nationwide that are from Texas. Just book them instead. Like, it'll go over so much better if you don't be like, Nashville recording artists. Because everyone just goes, oh, Nashville. Okay, we get what that is. It's the machine. We know what that is. Like Big Machine Records. That's the one that Taylor Swift dad owns. Big Machine Records. They are a big machine. They literally crank people out. And, like, they sign, like, 10 bands a day and just make dreams. And then so a couple people make it. And a lot of people don't. It's like, the Texas ones. Come on, MLB. Yeah. You're in Arlington. Get a Texas one.
Yeah, that would have been appropriate.
I don't know who's doing today. We'll see who's doing today.
Conversation here. Let's get some SEC Media Day stuff. All right, I want to play the Nick Saban sound first. This is the one I think Nick Saban, he hit the bullseye here. This is how you know Nick Saban is going to be a star even in his post-football career as a commentator and as an analyst, because he was able to rile up like 4 or 5 different fan bases with just this one comment. So here's Nick Saban's comment on whether Texas will have the clout it once did in the Big 12 once it becomes an official SEC member.
You know, what kind of tickles me is all these people asking these questions about how Texas always ran the conference they were in. They're not going to run the SEC. There's a whole lot of arrogant people in a lot of places in the SEC, so they can forget all about that. They'll be a good team and a great program, and Sark will do a great job, but that's not going to be a problem.
It's a little different.
Well done there. Well done. Well done there. That was a master class on a hot take and the phrasing of a hot take, because with the way he said it, he didn't specify. So some people took it as, hold up, he thinks competitively Texas has been running the Big 12. So Oklahoma fans immediately go, we've been running the Big 12. Look at our 14 Big 12 titles. Texas only got 4, so they got riled up. Longhorn fans who are just, they just want, they thought he was taking a shot at Texas. They got upset, and then they went after. Well, that's why we beat you this year. See, go after Nick Saban. We the one who knocked Nick Saban out of the game. That kind of thing. So you got Texas fans around him. Came back and gave Texas a backhanded compliment at the end of it. But I think he was talking about administratively. They're not going to run the SEC. So SEC teams, all of them, they're feeling a lot of pride because Nick Saban is essentially siding, I'm doing air quotes here, with the SEC, because he's saying, oh yeah, the SEC, when Texas comes here, they're going to have to fall in line, all right, because it's the SEC. So he basically was able to kind of hit like 4 or 5 different fan bases and get them all riled up for different reasons. Well done. That is what a hot take is all about. The man's been doing this for what, a couple of weeks? He's just the goat.
He was practicing. He's just sitting there practicing.
Perfect phrasing.
I'm gonna take Paul Feinbaum out of the picture.
That was a great comment, because Texas fans, I think he was talking about administratively. I think he was talking about logistically how the Big 12 kind of revolves around the 2 biggest brands in it, which are Texas and Oklahoma. So, hey, you would probably call Texas or consider Texas when making big decisions. The SEC won't do that. I think that's what he's talking about. But he didn't say that. He's just talking about, he just threw it out there. They're not going to run the SEC. And I think it was a brilliant strategy by Nick Saban. Okay, so let's get to another piece of audio here. Brian Kelly was asked about Texas being SEC ready, the head coach of LSU. I actually thought it was a really, really substantive answer here by Brian Kelly. Here's Brian Kelly talking about whether Texas is SEC ready.
What makes a school SEC ready, and what are some of the challenges Texas faces and Sark's build to get to this point?
Like if you take a snapshot, right? You take the Texas-Alabama game last year and say, well, they're SEC ready, right? I mean, they beat Alabama. But what happens is the guys in the front row that you talk to that year, they graduate. And so in the SEC, it's the ability to fill those seats again the next year. And then it's the ability to play the rigors of an SEC schedule week in and week out. So I think the medal is replacing those guys and then playing the rigors of that schedule week in and week out. So it's not just a snapshot in the SEC. It's really it's a long film. And if you can go through the rigors of an entire schedule, you're SEC ready.
Yeah, and I love the way you put that. I do. I think it's when you think about Texas playing in the Big 12, just the example that I like to bring up to kind of contextualize the whole thing, the conversation. Bud Elliott's blue chip ratio, it's the percentage of blue chips on your roster, 4- and 5-star recruits, to even register as a team in the blue chip ratio. You have to have at least 50% of your roster be blue chips, 4- and 5-star recruits. And in the last 3 years under Sark, Texas has faced 5 teams total in those 3 years. In Texas, 2-3 in those games, by the way, against teams that are considered blue chip ratio teams. They're going to face 5 of them on this year's schedule alone. Michigan is on there too, so 4 in the SEC. Florida, we talk about being a dumpster fire and disaster, and they're probably going to have an interim head coach by the time they play Texas. That very well may be true. They'll still have more talent than everybody in the Big 12 except for Texas and Oklahoma. Let that sink in. As much of a disaster as they're going to be, they're still going to have more talent than everybody on Texas' schedule last season, except for Bama and except for Oklahoma. Even Washington, by the way. So it's about developing that talent. Think about it, the Aggies are loaded with talent. It's about developing that talent, but in terms of talent, they'll be playing more like teams. So there is something to be said about the wear and tear, that burden of it. Okay, so Lane Kiffin. Here's Lane Kiffin when he was asked about Texas's transition to the SEC and if that roster is SEC ready.
Yeah, I mean, they were in the Final Four last year, and a lot of players coming back and continuing to add great high school players and portal players. So I think they're one of the elite rosters in America. So I don't, Sark would know well the challenges, so it's not like he's coming in with a team in the SEC that with a coach that hasn't been. So I think he understands that, and that conference was competitive too. So he had tough games there and tough places to play on the road there. It's just different, and the SEC is really challenging. And I mean, study road records and study road records at night in the SEC. And why do those percentages change? Because they're really good players, but they're really hard places to play with electric atmospheres that are challenging to play in. So you come in this conference, you get that more.
Yeah, didn't talk about that, but he's right about that. The atmospheres are very different. Patrick gave you the stat last hour about the stadiums and how different they are. I mean, you got bigger stadiums. It just means more passionate fan bases, more investment in the home field advantage in the SEC. Also something, that's going to affect, those environments. I mean, Texas wasn't a lot of one-score games last year, right? They had 5 one-score games they were in last year, ended up 3-2 in those one-score games. That's the Big 12. You're going to be in some more one-score games this year, but in different environments, especially when you got to be potentially on the road. All right, let's as one more Kiffin sound, then we'll get to the break here, and then we'll continue. We'll play the rest of it on the other side as we talk some more Texas football. But Lane Kiffin was asked about his close friend, Steve Sarkisian. They go way, way back, like 8 tracks, going back to their time at USC and on the West Coast. Here is Lane Kiffin when he was asked about what makes Sark so special as a head coach, play caller. I thought this was really a good point by Lane Kiffin.
Sark has really good balance, and I guess maybe in the video game things, since I keep hearing about the video game, like as you rank different areas and stuff, and some coaches are, you'd put these numbers by them, 99, whatever, in these certain areas. They might have lower numbers in these. I think he has really good balance where if you looked at him as a coach, like you do kind of teams, if that makes sense, like there's no weakness. I think he has really good player relations. I think he hires really well and evaluates coaches in that process really well. And he recruits great. So, and he's really innovative offensively. So I would say when I look at him, he has really great balance.
I agree with him, and I think he has so much balance to a fault sometimes. One of my critiques that I have for Sark, it's not even really a criticism, is that there are some concepts that work really well, and because he wants to exercise moderation and he wants balance in his offense, that he doesn't utilize them as much as he should, that he should be an extremist at time. Like take for instance the Washington game, right? Texas runs on the second drive of the game. Texas runs the pony package, 7 plays. They average over 10 yards per play, score their first touchdown of the game. And you would think, oh man, he's about to ram that pony package down their freaking throat. And you see the pony package for 2 more plays for the rest of the game. And you go, well, why didn't we see more of that? It's like, because he was like moderation. But I'm not going to let one particular concept and package take over and become the identity of my offense. Because it's, because there's so much balance and moderation with it, and him as a play caller too. I said the same thing about empty formation in that Washington game. Texas, Quinn Ewers was 4 or 5, I believe, out of empty formation in that game. He was killing it. I mean, almost like 18 yards per attempt. Should have ran more of it. Had 3 explosive plays out of it, but you only saw like 5 snaps of it. So it's interesting sometimes. I think he should be an extremist, and he is a moderate. He likes balance in his offense. He doesn't, even if something is overwhelmingly successful and you would think, okay, or disproportionately successful compared to everything else, you think, all right, he's gonna double down on that concept, that play. You may not see it again. I've said before, Sark doesn't play the hits. He'll have a great play concept that'll just discombobulate the defense and have them all twisted and lost. And you think he's going to run that again at one point in the season or either one point in that game, and you may not see it again. You'll be like, oh, what happened to that play that he ran 3 weeks ago? That was an awesome play. You may not see it again. It's almost too much balance.
Yeah,
everything in moderation, including moderation.
Yeah, I've thought that he is often given some other coaches too much credit at points.
Yes,
that
great point.
I have to keep changing because if I don't change, they'll adjust and then the play won't work. We'll try it until it stops.
Yeah, exactly.
No, why don't we test that theory? Why don't we test it sometimes?
Totally agree.
Because you maybe could have picked up, I don't know, 3 more touchdowns until they figured it out. But instead, we're going to try the next thing, and they know how to stop the next thing.
Come on now.
And now we're okay. Now we're moving to the next one. But that one was working. So keep doing the thing that works.
That's a great point. I love the way you put that. It's almost too much respect for your opponent. It's like, no. Assume, you know what I mean? Just run it again. And if they stop it, then you'll make the adjustment. Totally agree. All right. We got more Texas football conversation coming up on the other side. We'll hear from some more of the attendees from SEC Media Days. But I think I was wrong when I said that the only problematic area for Texas on offense last season was red zone offense. That was the only they needed to address in the offseason. I found a couple of more. We're talking about taking Texas from great to being a championship team, national championship team. And that mean, it's going to be in the margins, very small margins where they're going to improve and make that leap. We'll talk about that when we come back on the other side. Right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Hey, what's up, folks? Lifetime Longhorn, Rod Babers here. Let me tell you about Dr. Eckert and his wonderful team, and I can truly myself testify to the great work they do. I owe a huge debt of gratitude to Dr. Eckert and his wonderful all-star team there because I went in for a routine checkup just to get the teeth clean, to get checked up, to make sure everything was okay. Turns out everything was not okay. During that checkup, the thorough examination that Dr. Eckert and his team did, they found that my wisdom teeth were growing in sideways. I was on the verge of a disastrous situation potentially, folks, but they avoided that. They were able to avoid that. They made sure I was comfortable and informed, educated about the entire process. They also made sure that everything was done swiftly, got it done, was back at work within a couple of days, and my dental health and dental hygiene have never been better thanks to Dr. Eckert and his team. And since then, I've been back for checkups and cleanings. I've been back for fillings as well. They do a great job. Doesn't matter what it is: general dentistry, teeth whitening, dentures, porcelain crowns, veneers, dental implants, full mouth reconstruction, even root canal therapy, whatever it takes to ensure you're getting the best quality dental care available. That's what Dr. Eckert and his all-star team are all about. And right now, he has the ability to give you a brand new smile in just one day, permanently secured to your dental implants. No time spent without teeth. You'll get temporary fixtures first until they can complete your permanent smile, and you'll smile again with confidence and eat freely without pain or discomfort. We're talking about a lifelike permanent solution. So if you've been told your teeth need to be replaced, don't freak out. It's a complimentary consultation, so you got nothing to lose but everything to gain, because this is a revolutionary alternative to dentures. So what are you waiting for? A confident smile can truly change your life, and Dr. Eckert wants to change your life for the better. 512-345-3166. That's 512-345-3166, or visit dreckert.com. DRUECKERT.com. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some Texas football conversation. Well, to continue, I should say, our Texas football conversation. We'll get to the rest of the audio because I want to get to a piece of audio from Jackson Dart, who was talking about his transition as a quarterback into the SEC. I think it might be pretty good advice. Actually, asked him, does he have some advice for Quinn Ewers? So we'll get into that too. And Texas has to play Vanderbilt this year, and Clark Lee, the head coach of Vanderbilt, actually had something to say about Steve Sarkisian, and actually had a little background. So we'll get to that. But let's first a couple of areas where I think Texas needs to improve on. If they don't improve in these areas, we can't afford to see any decline, I should say, in those areas if they don't improve. Now, like I said, if they improve in these areas, great. But if Texas, I would say, is worse in 2024 in 2020 than they were in 2023 in these key areas, then we might have a problem. It may be one of the issues that say derails the season, but it could have a negative effect on Texas' chances to win the SEC or make it run in the college football playoff. We've talked about red zone offense ad nauseum. I mean, we've beaten that dead horse. Texas, 120th in country in touchdown percentage in the red zone, must get better. And I'm sure Sark's obsessing about that in the offseason. We've even talked about what his approach could be to remedy that issue in the offseason. But another issue I think Sark needs to address in the offseason is third down offense. Texas actually 70th last year in third down offense, 38.3%. So it puts them right around their average, right? They're right around average in college football. In 2022, they were 73rd in 73rd in third down percentage, 38.7%. So still, like I said, right around average there. Randomly in 2021, that was the best they have been in third down offense under Sark. They were converting 44% of their third downs in 2021, and they were 30th in the country. So it's like I said, it's not as bad as red zone offense because you were one of the worst teams in the country in red zone offense. 90th in overall red zone offense, 120th in touchdown percentage red zone, and the decline has been a precipitous decline for them, right? They were top 5 in red zone offense in 2021. And now you're approaching being bottom 15, right? In red zone and touchdown percentage in the red zone. That's, that's a pretty sharp decline. With third down offense, you've just kind of plateaued. And you were good, so there was a drop from 2021 to 2022. Then since 2022, it's remained kind of a flat, kind of stagnant plateau for you. So as long as you don't, the Texas offense was still explosive, it was still great. We're talking about now taking something that was great to being elite or to being the best offense in the country, something that could be a national championship caliber offense for Texas. And, the things that held Texas back last year, red zone offense, that's the reason you lost the Oklahoma game and the Washington game. That's another factor in terms of you losing that Washington game that we'll get to. But third down offense in the SEC, which is a line of scrimmage league, has better players, better defensive, defensive cultures overall. It's something to look at. And something that my man Patrick brought up about that too is interesting that, if you look at Texas in third down for Sark, I think ultimately for him as a play caller, ultimately with third down, he has to approach the early downs differently too. He's got to approach overall. If you're talking about third down, not talking about not just third down efficiency itself. You're talking about you want to avoid third down altogether. Bill Walsh, great quote was, the best third down call you make is the one you don't have to. All right. The one you never make because you don't even want to get to third down. I think Sark tries to get there. That's why he's aggressive as hell on first down, or he used to be. But then when that's unsuccessful, it's another, it compounds other negative issues working against you.
Yeah, I think he changes the phrase to the best fourth down call is not having to call one.
Yeah.
And
yeah, great point.
Just having that mindset of, okay, no, but we in today's era, you can go 4 downs. So we're just going to, we rather not have to go 4 downs, but we can. We're not worried about it. And I think that kind of mindset puts you behind the chains a little bit on third downs, calling plays that you feel are higher percentage to get you into a fourth down play you can call and go for. So you're not on 4th and 7. If it's 3rd and 7, we're only trying to pick up 5. Well, we're going to play a play that we know we can pick up 5, but the odds of us getting 7. So we'll throw down where they're going to sit at their defense is going to sit at the first down at the sticks, and we're going to throw underneath. And we know we can get the completion because we're going to throw underneath of where they're sitting, where they're happy because they stopped us, but we think we're going to go for it on 4th down, as opposed to trying to scheme something up and get that first down on 3rd down and not put yourself in a position where you're having to make a decision to, give them really good field position and shift momentum and everything else that can happen when you don't pick up a 4th down run. I mean, we know it cost Texas the Oklahoma game a year ago.
Yeah. No, you're right about that. And yeah, you're right. And Texas actually is pretty good at 4th down. I will give you that. So if that is part of his mindset, Texas last year, they're in their 4th down conversion rate. They're top 30 4th down conversion rate. So, and so if that is part of his mindset, then you're right. They're 33. They're 33. Sorry, 33rd, I should say. And in 2022, I believe they also were 40. They were 49. So they are a much better 4th down team than they are than some of.
But
at least they are on 3rd down. So maybe that's part of the mindset, is that we'll get it on 4th down.
But what's that percentage? Is it still like
they are 2022? Their percentage here. Let me make sure I get it. It says it's 54%. That's 4th down, by the way.
Yeah.
And 2023, their percentage was 61%.
61 is okay. 54 is not. I don't want to take a 50-50 shot of turning the ball over and give them field position. That's not a great percentage. Like, so you want 61. That to be a pretty good one.
So you're right. 61 is better. So if they improve on that, and I think a little bit of this is my theory also that relates to why they become so bad in the red zone when everything else on the team has gotten better. I think that there's some post Bijan Rojo hangover.
Yeah.
I mean, just with some of this stuff, even the 3rd down stuff on money downs in the red zone area where those guys were such phenomenal weapons because they were so great at breaking tackles. Here's something else that Texas has to improve on too. And I didn't realize this was, I don't think it's a problem area, but it did rear its ugly head in that game versus Washington. Fumbles. And this is transitioning to the SEC. Going to play more physical teams, more physical defenses. They're going to be trying to punch the ball out. 4 Longhorns had multiple fumbles. Even without Ewers 5, Texas fumble rate more than triple the SEC average. If you, of the Longhorns 16 fumbles, 9 were recovered by opponents, which ranked in the back third of college offenses. And we remember the Washington game, fumbles.
Yeah.
Something to consider. Yeah, just holding on to the ball a little bit more. And that's something also I think post Bijan and Rojo, they were so great. I mean, how many times do we remember Bijan and Rojo fumbling? Like 1 time each?
Yeah.
Like
I think Rojo, I remember a Rojo was a catch-up one, and then the Texas Tech game for Bijan.
Yeah. That's really the only times I remember. I'm sure that was another time. But I don't remember. Even when Bijan should have, when it looked like he broke his neck, it looked like he was
held on to it,
paralyzed. He held on to the ball. Oh, no, he dropped, but it wasn't a fumble. The ground caused the fumble. I think he did let go, but it was the ground that caused it. But it is like those dudes had a lot of, ball security. It was, I think, something that was another elite data point with them. And not that these other guys are bad in terms of their ball security and they have ball security issues, but Bijan and Rojo were elite in that category, and these guys are probably just average. I mean,
it's about.
I don't think Texas had a lot of fumbles last year, but the stat that I have is just above the SEC average to consider.
Yeah, and that's trying to stretch a play, trying to get it. Usually that's where you get those fumbles. Is trying to stretch a play, trying to get that extra yard, trying to stay up on your feet when you're not, when you should have just gone down. All those plays where all of a sudden there's 4 guys grabbing you. And now someone can literally hold your arms while the other punches at the ball.
Yeah. I mean, you got more grown men you're dealing with in the SEC. That's for damn sure. All right, we'll play that sound for you in the next hour. I got some more sound that we didn't get to. Jackson Dart, the Vanderbilt head coach, talking about Texas transition to the SEC and their matchup with Vanderbilt coming up this season. We'll get to that on the other side when we also get to some NFL news notes and nuggets. But on the other side, we'll also have off the record. We go to some wacky sports stories, sometimes from the sports world, sometimes beyond. And we'll get to that on the other side right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Beavers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to some off the record. Got a couple of stories I think that we can hit here. First of all, my man CB sent me this. Shout out to my man CB, always doing great work for us at Chris GB 002,000. So apparently, horns down has already come up at SEC Media Days. It's being discussed. John McDade, the SEC's coordinator of officials, said this on penalizing for doing the horns down. He said, quote, unsportsmanlike conduct needs to fit one of three categories. Is it taunting an opponent? Is it making a travesty of the game? Is it otherwise compromising our ability to manage the game? There's a difference between a player giving a signal directly in the face of an opponent as opposed to doing it with teammates celebrating after a touchdown or on the sideline. To net all that out, every single occurrence is not an act of unsportsmanlike conduct. McDade said the same applies to players displaying the gator chomp and land shark signals. So basically, for the horns down to be horns down, if for it to be a penalty, it has to be taunting, and you got to do it in a very disrespectful manner to the sideline or to the opposing team, and maybe to the crowd. Maybe I don't think it should be to the crowd. I think it should be only to the opposing team and like their opposing sideline. And that, other than that, it should be all legal, all allowed, as long as it's not disrespectful in that manner.
Exactly. It's kind of always been the thing, is that line of people saying, well, I should be able to, horns down where you guys get mad at it. You go, if it's in my face, I get mad if you point your finger in my face. Like anything in my face is going to be a problem. And so you just doing the horns down does not make it somehow acceptable now that I'm going to be a snowflake about it because you're putting this there. No, if you're putting anything in my face, that makes me want to fight you. You're trying to incite a fight by doing that. Now, if you just go do it to the crowd or you go show it up, go ahead. Because if you do it on TV to the camera, I think it makes you look stupid. So it doesn't bother me. I think it makes you look dumber because you're worried about us and you're not playing us.
Hey, like I said, I would love for them. I'm sad that it's not in the video game.
I should have been in the video game
that's coming out. It's stupid that it's not in the video game. And then with you, that let them do it in the camera. Let them do it anywhere, but just like any taunting, but to the opposing team and the opposing sideline.
Yeah.
Just avoid that. Hey, you want to do it? If y'all want to have a touchdown celebration where all y'all doing the horns down, have at it. It's all good. Best free media you can get. So I'm all for that. All right. I wanted to get to some other stories, but we got time. We'll just make the 9 o'clock a smorgasbord. We're just gonna throw all types of damn topics in there, along with the Dak Prescott conversation about where he's ranked among the latest quarterback rankings from ESPN. So we'll do all of that and more on the other side. We'll come right back. This is the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Davis. Coming back on the Horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time for Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's the musically themed day of the week. My man Patrick always on the Top of the Charts Tuesday. He chooses all the musically themed days of the week, but Top of the Charts Tuesday is special because he takes jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. And here's a little Tupac for you. How do you want it? Like that, the jam. Little Tupac and Jodeci in that one. This is how you know your phones are listening to you, though. Like Tupac came up, boom, on my timeline just now. I swear, it's a random, and I'm on the For You tab on X. Random Tupac just came up right there. You see it? That's Tupac. Just came up on my timeline. Yeah, I mean, that just lets you know it's your phone's listening to you, people. I mean, it's done. I don't know what. I mean, it basically is in that big long thing we agreed to. That 1,800 page document is like, well, if you want all your app available, you want to have availability of all your apps, and you want to have access to all this and that, you have to agree to these terms. And you're like, I can't read all that. You know what?
No, and you can go
into in that agreement. You agree to let them.
No,
listen
you
to
can
all
go
your
into
stuff.
certain things and turn it off and then you're like, you download another app and it's like, well, now that one's listening. So that one's
and they're all feeding back data and information
yes.
To some source, I'm sure. So yeah, I mean that's it. But anyway,
how many
Tupac,
times?
I appreciate that.
How many times do you think Starland Vocal Band and Tupac have been played together in the show?
Oh, that's got to be a first.
Think that happens very often?
No, hell no. That's got to be a first, man. That's got to be a first. But I got to tell you, the content very, very similar in the content of the songs. How do you want it? Tupac is asking, boom, how do you want this? We can give it to you anyway. Talking about banging it out. And also they were talking about banging it out during the day. Boom. And what if you want it? How do you want it? I want it during the day. I want, how do you want it? I want afternoon delight. That's what I want. So boom, there you go. It's the connection. I like that. All right. My man Patrick obviously doing a great job here with the musically themed days of the week, but also with the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day. It is college football related topic because we're all in a college football state of mind because SEC Media Day is going on right now. Patrick, give the folks the topic for the Big Fat Poll of the day, which is posted right now on X at the Horn ATX.
Big Fat Poll of the day today. How many SEC championships will Texas football win in the next 10 years? We know that Nick Saban said they're not going to run it, and he didn't mean necessarily winning all the titles, but that's where people took it. So we thought we'd ask you to see what Texas fans were thinking, to see if Texas fans were going to be the unrealistic and say, no, we will win like Nick Saban did in Alabama, 7 titles in the last 10 years, 9 since he took over at Alabama. That is it's a lot of SEC championships that Nick Saban has won. So we did that. Only 3%, just 7 to 9. More people say 0, which I think maybe are not Texas fans. But there's 10% of people say 0, 8% say 4 to 6, 78% 1 to 3. Realistic. Texas fans in there. They're realistic.
Yeah. They are. I mean, I went 1 to 3 too when I looked at it because I couldn't go into the 4 range. I would have liked to because I think NIL and the transfer portal are going to be so advantageous to Texas and so beneficial. It'll give them way more advantage than they had, when they were in Big 12, in that Big 12 play. But I will say that, you won 4 Big 12 championships in football in 28 years. That's a high level of underachievement. So I think a lot of Longhorn fans are just humbled from that, the entire process. And they thought, hell, Mac should have won. Hell, I should have won more. Mac should have won more championships. And now going into the SEC, even a higher level of competition, even though Texas does have a really good coach in Sark, damn good roster, and looks like the future is bright with Arch Manning too. And you don't want to get too cocky because you should have won. I mean, Oklahoma had 14 Big 12 football championships. 14. Texas had 14. I don't think we think about that enough, how many they had.
Yeah.
Guys, that's a lot.
So
I just think I think a lot of Longhorn fans just being humbled. Like, yeah, you know what? Let's try to get 1 or 2 first in 10 years before we start talking about 4 in 10 years. Because, I mean, every 3 years is actually, that should be the standard. That's realistic for Texas, considering the resources and the advantages Texas has. But 14 Big 12 titles. Good Lord. Texas had 4. Baylor had 3. Kansas State had 3. Nebraska 2, and then Colorado, Oklahoma State, TCU, and A&M all 1 Big 12 title. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, So essentially, that's why, you don't want to jump out on a limb. It basically, Nick Saban dominated the SEC the way Oklahoma dominated the Big 12, and that's why Longhorn fans want to forget about the Big 12 and start anew. Even if it's in the toughest college football conference of all time, let's start anew, because the Big 12, that was some fun times, but most of our Big 12 tenure was spent as an underachiever. And I'll admit, I was a part of some of those teams. We won 11 games 2 years in a row when I was here. Still should have won more.
Yeah,
we were that good.
I mean, and the reality too is, if you say Georgia's been on that run where we think Georgia's been one of the most dominant teams the last 5 years.
Yep,
they won one SEC championship in the last 5 years. Alabama won 3.
Damn. Yeah.
Because LSU won 2019. LSU won 2019 when they had that team. Georgia won 2022, but 2020, 2021, 2023 are all Alabama.
Wow. It's a great point. Yeah. I mean, thank God Nick Saban's done and doing, analyst work, because now you don't have to worry about him. And so that's why it's and that's another reason why it's possible that Texas could win more than their fair share in that 10-year span. You ain't got to worry about the GOAT.
But
I mean, that guy was the apex predator among apex predators. I mean, he was like the T-Rex in the land of prehistoric predators. I mean, he was it.
Yeah,
nobody even came close to what Nick Saban was doing. He's gone. Man, it's open. I mean, not Kirby Smart's still the guy, but he seems like he would be easier to topple than Nick Saban. And you did topple Nick Saban.
Again, the 5 years before that. 5 years before that, Alabama won 4.
I know. It's just
Georgia won 1.
I know. And that's why Kirby Smart's celebrating too. He's like, thank God this guy's gone.
Get
out of
here.
Insane. To be that dominant. I mean, that's something fathomable to be that dominant.
In a conference that's
Bob
like
Stoops is saying that. Bob Stoops in Oklahoma said that about
them
in the Big 12. They're like, that they kept that Big 12 trophy in their office. 14. That's a lot. I mean, that's all we know is Oklahoma winning Big 12 titles. That's Texas' rival. You can't have your rival dominating, the conference like that. So Texas can't even say they were the apex predator. The apex predator. They were a apex predator. They were one of 2, but they weren't necessarily the top dog in the Big 12. You want to be the top dog in the SEC, it's going to be a Herculean task. But
because you look at the last 5 years in the Big 12, in OUS 2, and then it went Baylor, K-State, Texas. But if you go the 5 years before that, that's where it starts to become very heavy Oklahoma.
Yeah, and you can argue, hell, with Lincoln Riley. Hell, I guess Texas is right now 1-2 versus Oklahoma, but Lincoln Riley very different than Bob Stoops because he doesn't have the emphasis or doesn't prioritize defense as much. And that's right now might be his downfall. And for Oklahoma, it does seem like with Sark coming in and I don't know, just the way the conference overall started to evolve, that they didn't have the dominant stranglehold on the conference that they once did. I'll agree with that too. In like the last 5 years, obviously that stat you just broke out there says it, but it did seem like that. It did seem like they didn't have it seemed like they had the best quarterbacks because of Lincoln Riley and really good offenses, but they weren't as unbeatable as they once were and dominant in the conference. So, all right. So good conversation there. The topic for the Big Fat Poll today, go check it out for yourself. The Horn ATX on the X account for us. We'll also get to some NFL news notes and nuggets. I want to talk about Dak Prescott's ranking among that Jeremy Fowler survey of execs, coaches, and scouts. We'll get to that top 10 quarterback ranking. We'll also get to the conversation earlier. There's an area of concern now that the NFL is paying attention to. That, I'm not saying they weren't paying attention to it, but they thought maybe it was an outlier, maybe it was something that was an aberration. But after about 3 or 4 years of this pattern becoming a trend, now it's becoming something that is of high priority concern. for the NFL. So we'll dive into that when we do Ron's rant. Also, I want to ask Patrick a little bit about some that Team USA's scare potentially if they had in one of their exhibition games. So we'll talk some hoops as well. Before we do any of that, though, let's get updated, let's get educated, let's get informed with all the top stories of the day with Patrick Davis and the Horn Headlines.
All right, your Horn Headlines brought to you by Top Gun Rentals and Lawn Equipment. In the MLB, Teoscar Hernandez won the 2024 Home Run Derby, narrowly edging out Bobby Witt Jr. in the finals by 1 home run, 14-13. His Witt missed a home run in his final swing by just a few feet. Hernandez had 19 in his first round and 16 in his second round to advance to the finals. Adolis Garcia just missed out on advancing to the second round with a first round 18-19 was the line. And in the biggest surprise of the night, two-time Derby champion Pete Alonso could only muster 12 home runs in the first round before being eliminated. The MLB All-Star Game takes place tonight with several players representing the Texas teams. Marcus Semien makes his third All-Star appearance as the starting second baseman for the AL, while Corey Seager was selected as an injury replacement for Carlos Correa yesterday, making it Seager's fifth All-Star selection. Reliever Kirby Yates gets his second All-Star selection coming out of the bullpen. And for the Astros, Yordan Alvarez will start at the DH, making his third straight All-Star game, while Jose Altuve and Kyle Tucker will both miss the game due to injury. The American League team will look to get back on the winning side after the National League ended a 9-year streak of AL wins last season. That is your Horn Headlines.
All right, Patrick, thank you for the Horn Headlines. We appreciate those. All right, first, let's start out with talking about Dak Prescott a little bit, because the quarterback rankings from ESPN, Jeremy Fowler did a survey of executive scouts and coaches in the NFL and asked them, who are your top 10 players at each position. And he's been going through different positions all week. I think they say the quarterbacks for last. There's obviously more drama surrounding the quarterback position. And I thought, based on Jeremy Fowler's ranking here from the survey of the execs and the scouts and the coaches, I thought the top of this list was pretty accurate, but then toward the bottom, I think there's a lot left to be desired. Okay, so here is the top 10 list. Patrick Mahomes is number 1. No shock there. Bengals, Joe Burrow is number 2 in these top 10 rankings. Josh Allen, number 3. Ravens, Lamar Jackson, your reigning MVP, 2-time MVP now, is number 4. And I think after number 4 is where things get a little bit more debatable. Matthew Stafford's at number 5. Chargers, Justin Herbert's at number 6. Texans, CJ Stroud at number 7. They got Aaron Rodgers of the Jets at 8. Lions, Jared Goff at 9, and Dak Prescott got it finished second in the MVP voting. Also, second team All-Pro this year. He is 10th on these quarterback rankings. I think Dak has, at this point, earned enough street cred to be firmly in the top 10. Right here, he's like right on the outskirts, potentially right on the cusp of the top 10 at number 10. I think he probably should be closer to 7 or 6 or 7, maybe 7 or 8 somewhere on this list, considering what he did last year. If you're looking at who doesn't belong in this group, I think Justin Herbert's your guy that doesn't necessarily belong in the group at all. I think he's probably the one you can drop out of the top 10. And if you don't want to drop him out, drop him down to 10. And I'm not saying put Dak there, but then you can start bumping up some other ones. I'll even admit, and I'm a CJ Stroud fan because I'm a Texans fan, and CJ Stroud had the greatest rookie season in the history of the NFL. We've given you so many stats about that this offseason. But if you're going off sample size, that is 1 year. And if this survey, if they're going off year, if they're doing it year to year and saying, oh no, we doing it year to year, we're ranking these guys year to year. Well, if that's the case, Aaron Rodgers probably shouldn't be as high because he's coming off an injury. And if that's the case, CJ Stroud, if that's the case, then Dak should be higher because Dak's coming off, his best season and finishing second in the MVP voting. So it's going off it being a year-to-year thing, it would be different. So I don't think that's the case. They're going off sample size, and CJ Stroud's sample size is just 1 season, and that's a little small for this group. So I can even justify you bumping him down to 9 or bumping him down. Hell, if you wanted to bump him down to 10, you could do that too, because he just came off a rookie season. So I get that. I argued last year during the season that he was playing like a top 10 quarterback, and they have him here ranked like a top 10 quarterback, held on the cusp of being a top 5 quarterback. So that's how I would give Dak a bump. CJ Stroud maybe drops down. Justin Herbert drops out, if not to number 10. Dak moves up. Don't know how much, but should be firmly in the top 10, now on the cusp of it based on what he did.
Yeah. And I mean, like Matt Stafford, I like Matt Stafford, but his injury history recently, he hasn't been the same guy. And we know that he's a really good player, but I mean, he also, at Dak's age, hadn't won playoff games because he was playing in Detroit.
It's true.
At 30 years old, he was still in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if we want to give him this late career resurgence and then the future, he was in a similar position to Dak Prescott of being in a place that did not have a winning culture, and he was not able to win playoff games. And then he went to a different team and went there. But just on what they've been able to do the last 2 years, I don't know if I would have put him straight in that top 5 quarterback in the. I don't know if I would have put him up that high.
Yeah,
and maybe drop him down a little bit. I mean, you can have the conversation him and Dak, but I'm not going to say he's 5 spots better than Dak.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's why that Super Bowl ring really changed the narrative.
Oh,
the perception
100%.
of Matthew Stafford. You're right, because and now, I mean, people were having a Hall of Fame conversation about Matthew Stafford. I don't remember that at all prior to what he did with the rest. So you're right. I mean, he played really well last year too, but he could be a little, inflated there, no doubt. Some people are talking about Jared Goff as well, that Jared Goff shouldn't be ranked ahead of Dak. I think Jared Goff is getting a lot of credit, as well he should, for winning playoff games with 2 different franchises. I said it's really hard to do. It's hard to win playoff games, period. That's Dak. Let alone winning with 2 different franchises as a starting quarterback. So I think that's why he's getting a little bit of love there. So I'm not going to take that from Jared Goff. And I'll say something else that Dak is taxed on, the Dak tax, if you will, in terms of these conversations, and why I think he drops down some lists. Being a first-round pick will always give you more of a benefit of the doubt over a guy drafted in the middle rounds or later rounds in the NFL. Even when that shouldn't even be a part of the conversation because you're so far removed from it. Look at the list. Everybody's a first-round pick.
Yeah,
it's like I've always said this about Cowboys fans and Dak. That's why Cowboys fans have always felt very. I don't know. They've been very divided on Dak and Romo, because Romo was an undrafted free agent.
Yeah,
Dak was a 4th round pick. They were never supposed to be the franchise quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So every fan base wants the prince that was promised. That 1st round pick, we got it. This is our guy. He's got all the measurables, all the raw tools. This guy's got the upside, big arm. Oh, that's why Justin Herbert's getting a lot of love here. He ain't got no playoff success. Statistically, yeah, he's achieved a little, but not much regular season success either. But if you want to build a quarterback, he'll come pretty close to the prototypical quarterback you'd build.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? And so I think a lot of it is the preconceived expectation and almost adoration that that fan bases have for that 1st round pick. And even execs too, they'll always give a 1st round pick more chances than a guy like Rod B was drafted in the middle rounds. Even if we both are proven to be busts and don't work out, I'll get 4 shots. He'll get 8 to 10 with the 1st round pick. And I totally understand that. I mean, he had a higher upside than Rod B, but the same thing is true for Dak. They'll always think Dak has a limited upside, and he'll always have a lower ceiling than the quarterbacks who were drafted in the 1st round. So even with all of them achieving, similar things at the NFL level, it's weird. I always compare it to when you go to your high school reunion 20 years later, and the promiscuous girl in high school is still called a slut at 20 years. It's like, dude, she's a mother of 3. I mean, it's like I don't think she's living up to that reputation anymore. Or the guy that was lazy and skipped class and smoked marijuana, behind the school. He's at the 20-year reunion, people are like, "Man, so what did you end up being?" He's like, "I'm a CFO of a Fortune 500 company." You know what I mean? Like, oh, really? That's shocking. It's amazing. And you're like, well, it's 20 years later. It's they're so far removed from what they once were that you don't no longer need to apply that stigma, that reputation when you analyze them, but people still do. And they do it with draft picks too.
Yeah.
And that's why Dak is 10. And I don't know if he'll ever rise above that in people's minds because he's always fourth round Dak to them.
Yeah. How many Super Bowls did it take Tom Brady to get to that point? Like 3, probably
Exactly.
3 or 4 before people were like, okay, now we'll say that he was we all missed when we didn't pick him. Well, it wasn't done the first one.
No, you're right about it. That's a great point. And you brought that up about missing because it starts with the scouts and this is scouts and executives and coaches here. And they're the ones who initially doubted them coming out. That's why they wouldn't draft them high. So to your point, they don't want to be wrong. So that's why the narrative is hard to shift away from, or it's hard to shatter that narrative for the player.
Yeah.
Because the coaches and execs are always like, hey, looking at Dak.
We all sat in a room and said no to this guy multiple times. We said he won't be the guy and moved him down. We all put him on our board. People made vicious arguments that he would never be able to do anything. And so, there's a difference of that versus a guy who said, hey, man, if we can trade up for Jared Goff, I give up 3 firsts for him. Maybe I rank him a little bit higher because I was, 10 years ago willing to give up 3 firsts for him while I passed on Dak 4 times. So maybe we can, maybe I'll look at it a little bit differently of what I think of those guys can be. Yeah, I think you're 100% right on that there is always going to be that lingering.
It happens at the college level too. I mean, a guy that's not highly recruited, we see that, not 1 star, 0 stars, 2 stars. I mean, ask Baker Mayfield, who couldn't get a scholarship, and even though he had performed at it, we're like, no, but you're a walk-on though. You're still a walk-on. It's like, but I'm balling like a scholarship quarterback. It's like, yeah, but you walked on. It's like, well, give me a scholarship, and it's like, and then he had to go to Oklahoma, and then we all know how that worked out.
That also explains the Matt Stafford one, because Matt Stafford is the guy that 10, 12 years later, everybody could walk in and go, I told you put him on the right team. He's great.
Yeah, true that. Great point. That was a lot of people arguing that no, Detroit's great, but then you get Jared Goff, who goes to Detroit, and now Detroit is a Super Bowl contender, and you're like, how the hell does that work? I thought he was a bust. And not even Sean McVay wanted him. Man, quarterback. It's a really tough position to project and predict. And like I said, it's an inexact science. But that is ultimately, I think, what's hurting people's evaluation of Dak. Chris Rock has a great bit where he talks about marriage and why a lot of people are miserable in their marriages. Not me, but he talked about how if the women are like really mean to the guys, and if they're miserable all the time and always constantly complaining and always obviously being tough on the dudes in the house, he said usually there's one reason. He said because he's not her first choice.
Yeah.
And she's always comparing him in her mind to that dude that she wanted and that she should have had. And I think for Cowboys fans, that's Dak for them. That's Romo for them. Yeah. They always think about, man, why we end up with the 4th round pick undrafted? Why we can't have a really nice 1st round drafted quarterback that that is great and the prince that was promised. And I think it affects their ability to really buy into Dak and be all in on him.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, there you go.
But hey, be happy because the one you were going to get was Johnny Manziel. So
exactly. Yes. There you go. That's the whole point. That's exactly. It's like, yeah, but think about, there's no guarantee you was going to hit when you got the 1st round one. Those guys hit like 25% of the time. Anyway, good conversation there. A good point about the Johnny Manziel thing. Oh man, that could have been you. That could have been you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's get to Raj. You know what? Let's save Raj rant. We're gonna save that for next segment because I want a little bit more time with it. Let me ask you real quick about Team USA because you actually may have watched this. You watched it. Okay. So there are some people calling this a scare because Team USA ended up in a more competitive game. Ended up being a win by single digits. Basically, the assumption is that this version of the Dream Team, Team USA, should win every game by double digits. And if it's only a single digit win, which in this case it was for Team USA in this exhibition, tune up for the Olympics, 98-92 over, was it Australia? That something went wrong. Did something go wrong?
I mean, so the same thing that went wrong, that went kind of wrong in the last game. This is, USA was able to pull ahead and pull away from it. And then at the end of the game, in the fourth quarter, that's when Australia made a run. And basically, Team USA took their foot off the gas. They didn't care anymore. They were just kind of lollygagging. Oh, we got a lead. We'll be good. They started taking worse shots. They stopped playing defense. And they let Australia get right back into it, and it's hard to then turn it back on once everybody had turned it off. And so it is a problem that if they do that in the Olympics, if they keep doing that, then they'll lose games because you're going to be playing against better teams in Australia, and you can blow a 30-point lead. But the reality was, if that team wanted to play 40 minutes and win the game and wanted to play, hard the whole time and play defense the whole time, they would have won by 25.
I gotcha.
They just, it's that issue of once you get further in the bench, the league is now so much more offensive based that guys start just playing how they play on their teams at home and not how they need to play in the Olympics. And they just start playing of, hey, let's dribble down and jack up a three. And let's, we'll throw the ball around 5 times kind of, and we'll make, instead of the passes being really crisp and making good passes, we'll try and make highlight reel plays, but those result in turnovers. I think your big one now that you're looking at is that Joel Embiid still doesn't look like the guy. He still doesn't look like he fits in on this team at all. And I know that they don't want to bench him yet because they don't want to basically take away all of his, confidence. But Anthony Davis is clearly outplaying him.
Okay.
So they're just having Anthony Davis come off the bench. But I think you'll see Embiid's minutes start shrinking more and more unless he starts to figure it out. Too much of his game is based around getting fouled. Too much of his game is based around holding the ball a lot. And you just can't do that when you're playing really, really you're playing with 4 other Hall of Famers on the court with you at all times. He's used to playing with Tyrese Maxey as the second best player on his team. And so even when he had James Harden, it was more a thought if Harden played or he played. And, you just put the ball in the hand and everybody else kind of stopped. And so they need to work on that. There's still stuff they need to get better at. I believe they play again tomorrow. But yeah, I don't think it was as much of a scare. I think people were pissed off, and especially people who bet on it are pissed off because
there you go.
The line was way bigger than that. And I know the pregame was, are they going to win by 30 or something like that? You're like, no, they're not, because this isn't that's not what this team is. And so I'm not as worried about it. I think once you'll see when they start playing better teams, that you'll have to start worrying a little bit more. But in reality, it wasn't so much that that Australia really put a scare into them as Australia just played the final 10 minutes.
They played the entire game, and
Team
USA decided to play like 3 quarters. Basically.
Yeah, they basically slowed it down at the end and started taking, not really caring nearly as much. And, they don't want to play big minutes. You see guys like LeBron and Tatum only played 21 minutes. Steph Curry played 21 minutes. You can put
KD's still hurt, right?
KD's still out right now, so you didn't even have him playing. He'll come back in. I think they'll be fine. And then the other story is, of course, Kawhi Leonard, that the Clippers came out.
Okay.
And
let's talk about this a little bit.
The Clippers basically came out. Lawrence Frank, the executive or the president or whatever he is, came out and said that it was not a mutual decision and that the Clippers are upset that Team USA did not have Kawhi Leonard, which didn't have Kawhi Leonard say it because Kawhi Leonard hasn't said anything.
No, he never will.
And he never will because this is what this feels like to me. And maybe I'm just a bitter Spurs fan. But what this feels
I'm glad you preface it by saying, listen, maybe I'm just a bitter Spurs fan.
And maybe bitter Raptors fans will agree with me. But this feels much more like when you're a kid and someone asks you to do, like a coach is like, hey, you need to run sprints because you weren't playing hard. You didn't practice hard enough. And you're like, well, I'm not running sprints. I quit. And then you go home and your mom goes, hey, why aren't you at practice? And you go, they kicked me off the team. It feels like that. It feels like that. that
he's like, well, you don't want to run sprints, and you got to get out the team.
Yeah, it feels like he tried to pull the same thing that he does in LA, which he picks when he practices, he picks when he plays in LA. He just does. And there's all these reports about how it is. There's reports about him and Paul George going and talking and then coming back over to the team and telling them they're taking a night off. There's reports of like all those things that were happening at with the Clippers. And, I think especially when you saw Kevin Durant say he was going to miss some time, that Kawhi took that to be the message of, okay, that's how we're doing it. Cool. Taking some time off then. I don't want to practice today. My hamstring's a little tight, so I'm going to take today off. Like, man, you can't we're not good enough to take days off of practice. Like, we need to go out there and practice. No, man, I'll tell you what, though. I'll be ready for the game. Like, no. You can't pull rank with the best players in the league to not practice. You can't do that because now no one's going to practice. Everyone's going to take it off. And so I think that they went to him and said, if you can't practice, and if you say you're not healthy enough to practice, then you're not healthy enough to play. So if you can't do that, and Kawhi said, okay, I'm not healthy enough to practice. So they said, okay, mutual decision. You've decided that you are not healthy enough to play here. So why don't we separate and you can go get ready for the season? And then he went back and they said, well, what happened? He said, well, I told him I wasn't healthy enough to practice and they told me I had to go home.
I think you're right. He didn't change up his
No.
He didn't change up his MO for anybody. That's just who he is. Man. That's just the way he goes about it.
And that's fine, but you shouldn't have accepted the invite. You should have been able to look at somebody in the face and tell them what you thought instead of having to have it come out later and do everything under the cloak of darkness and then come out and have what you have. And then, but look, you got the Clippers. Steve Ballmer's 100% bought into Kawhi Leonard. And
because if he ever, he
doesn't really have much of another choice.
Season. You keep looking at that Toronto season, and then when he's with the Spurs before he became a diva and became more self-interested, and then you see what
the potential,
the possibility.
But if you see anybody who just says, I will pick when I practice and when I play,
that's just the reality of it.
And that's your leader?
Yeah.
When James Harden's setting the example, we might have a problem there.
He's your culture bearer, James Harden. Setting the tone. No, he's just not a leader. He's not a leader at all. He's just an amazing player. But I actually don't think he loves basketball that much. He's just really good at it. And I knew guys in the league like that. I swear, I knew guys who they were great at it, but they didn't love football. Like they hated it. They didn't watch it. And they dread it, like you dread going to work. Some of y'all, they dreaded going to work. They dreaded going to practice. Like, man, I hate this. I'm like, dude, you're really good. You're like, you got a second contract you signed. You're awesome.
And
but that's not everybody.
And the difference between the Raptors Kawhi and Clippers Kawhi is Raptors Kawhi did not have FU money. Raptors Kawhi was not able to pick and choose what he wanted to do because he still had to make his money. Kawhi Leonard, and as soon as he signed with the Clippers with that max contract and all that money he just made, well, if I never make another dollar in my life, I don't spend a ton, I'm fine. He don't spend
anything.
No, I don't think because he doesn't do anything.
Yeah, he's frugal, man.
You got to do stuff to spend money.
Yeah, and that kind of confirms my theory that he just never really. And it's fine, by the way. I'm not judging him, but like I said, I knew people like that as pro athletes who never loved it. They just were good at it. And I'm sure some of y'all out there can relate. Like,
but this is the thing
I don't love it.
This is the problem is I don't think Tim Duncan ever really, really loved basketball in the sense of how other guys do. I think he's an extremely competitive guy and had a love for competing. And that's why he's still a part of it. It's because he still likes to be part of the competition, still likes going and playing with guys and being a part of that. I think there's parts of it he liked. I don't know what Kawhi gets out of it other than, man, I'm really good at this. I'm tall enough. I'm athletic enough. I'm going to do this, make my money, and then I'll be around.
But even if it's just the competition that keeps you coming back, and that's your sickness, it's still, I think, it keeps you motivated. It keeps you focused. If he doesn't care, if he doesn't have the competitive sickness we talk about, and he doesn't love the game, some guys do it for the love of the game because they can't let it go.
Yeah.
It's everything. Ask Tom
Chris
Brady.
Chris Paul's 39. He said, I went to the Spurs because they told me I could play.
Yeah, I love the game that much. Yeah. It's their identity. I don't think any of that's true for Kawhi. No. And by the way, I'm not judging him, but I think that's why it's tough to.
No, that's they said they got the Vegas, the guys who are out at Vegas for Summer League, all the players. there's pickup games all across Vegas, and they're like in hotel ballrooms. They set up courts so that these guys can go play with. And they're like, we just want to go play.
They're ballers. Yeah. That's all they know. It's like, no, I'm balling for Kawhi. I just think he's good at it. And by the way, like I said, I know a lot of guys in the league like that.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with it. All right, we come back. We'll get into Rod's rant of the day. Good stuff there. We'll get into Rod's rant of the day, and also we'll talk a little more NFL news, notes, and nuggets. All that and more right here on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis. I'm Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. All right, welcome back to the Rodcast. Time to get to Rod's rant of the day. Behind the concussion crisis, which is an existential issue for the NFL, has been, and really kind of now their class action lawsuit they're dealing with, the Direct TV lawsuit, which for the NFL could change the entire infrastructure of the way that they sell or package games for the public, and no doubt the Colin Kaepernick issue for them. Behind those three issues, this issue is probably the most concerning for the future of the NFL, and it's scoring and offense, because even with all the advantageous rules for the offense and all of the different conceptual cheat codes and loopholes they found to help the offense, all the innovation, defense is actually starting to win more than their fair share. And we're seeing offensive productivity and efficiency decline in the last few years. Combined points per game, offensive touchdowns per game, passing touchdowns, yards gained per touchdown, scoring drive percentage, red zone touchdown percentage are all at 7-year lows currently in the NFL. Now, at first, the NFL thought, all right, COVID, because, they thought, because I think right before COVID, this happened. And then, COVID. So they figured, okay, it may have had before COVID, it was an aberration or an outlier. And then COVID screwed up everything. So they thought, okay, and then post-COVID, we got to recover from COVID, that kind of thing. So they figured, okay, but they just blamed it on COVID. And then now they're starting to see that this, outlier and this pattern has now become a trend where defense right now is, like I said, in my opinion, defensive evolution is starting to catch up with some of the offensive innovation. And the formula for and if you go back, you have to go back to 2008 to find a season that had fewer passing touchdowns per game than the past 2 years. Outside of the 2017 season, you have to go back to 2007 to find a season in which games averaged fewer offensive touchdowns per game than last season. Offensive points per play were their lowest since 2009. And the formula is simple, right? You hear me talk about this all the time on the show. More 2 deep safeties, less man coverage, more zone coverage, more nickel as your base, as 5 DBs, less dime and other sub packages. Your blitz rates are pretty flat. You're playing lighter boxes, and that essentially is the base recipe that the NFL's defenses are going to. And with this kind of base formula, they've been able to limit explosive plays and increase defensive success rate. Defensive success rate, and by the way, success rate is defined as getting at least 50% of the yards needed to gain for a first down on first, 70% of the yards needed for a first down on second, and 100% of the yards needed for a first down on third and fourth down. And then so just flip that for the offensive defense. That's success rate in a nutshell. Defensive success rate in 2023 was the highest it has been since the 2013 season, third highest since 2000s. On just passing plays alone, 58% the defensive success rate matched the highest rate in the 2000s. And basically what you've seen is these umbrella defenses with 2 deep safeties. They've been able to cap the explosive plays, putting a ceiling, putting an umbrella on the defense. So in 2023, there were just 9 passing plays per game that gained 10 or more yards, the fewest in a season since 2008. In all, if you'll look at it, 2021, 2022, and 2023 seasons have 3 of the 4 lowest rates of passing touchdowns from 20-plus yard plays since they've been keeping track of it. So fewer touchdowns off explosive plays, fewer explosive plays, period, in the passing game overall. And it's because they're putting these caps on the defense essentially with 2 deep safeties. Now, what's happened is defenses have forced offenses to exercise more patience, all right, with the underneath passing game. And so offenses have evolved to emphasize quick game. 60% of offenses in the NFL passing games are just quick game. 60%, of NFL passing games are quick game. Balls out in 3 steps or fewer. That means fewer explosive plays. You're relying on screens, and the RPO game is run pass options, a combination of the quick game and the run game. So you're more shotgun, so your quarterbacks can survey the field. They don't have to deal with the labor, if you will, the burden of being under center, getting out from underneath under center. High, it makes your quick game that much more difficult. Your degree of difficulty, increases tremendously just off forcing your quarterback to be under center to execute a 3-step drop rather than just doing it from the shotgun. Now, the problem with that is, actually, if you go look at it, shotgun, because teams are in shotgun more, the play action pass rates are dropping and under center rates are dropping, of course, because you have more shotgun. And strangely enough, that is actually one of the cheat codes that helps offenses to get more chunky yardage, explosive plays down the field. And so teams are starting to throw it basically they're starting to throw it at a shorter yardage, just shorter depths in terms of the average depth of target with the quick game, and that's led to lower explosive play. So you go look at it now. And that's also led to fewer play action pass drops. Play action pass, as I pointed out, is a cheat code. 8.2 yards per attempt with play action pass, 6.6 yards per attempt last year without play action pass. Under center, if you go look at it, under center, you have 8 yards per attempt under center, 6.8 yards per attempt from the shotgun last year on average. So you're more effective when you're under center with passes, and you're more effective using play action, but teams are using less of that because they are emphasizing quick game and they're emphasizing getting the ball out quickly. And if that's the case, it's just more efficient to be in a shotgun, and it's more efficient to eliminate play action and go with more RPOs instead of play action. And that's what the NFL is starting to do. The downside, it's good for defenses. The downside to that is, like you said, you don't get the vertical shots down the field anymore. You chicks dig the long ball. You're not getting long ball. And defense are getting better and better at tackling underneath in the open field. So if you don't get the deep ball, at least you would get explosive plays, because offenses would break tackles, and then boom, break tackles, still get those explosive chunk yardage gains. You're not getting those either, because defenses are actually getting more and more efficient at tackling in the open field. And sacks are a big part of this too. The sack rate is actually up. Strangely enough, quarterbacks are more dynamic, more athletic than they've ever been, but the sack rate is higher than it's been in a long time. 7.1% sack rate last season, highest in the NFL since 1998. If you look at data, if you look at the kind of analytics and the metrics from data, it'll tell you that the biggest disruptor and the biggest drive killer, other than turnovers, is a sack. And sack rates are up, killing drives. First time the league has had back-to-back seasons with a 7% sack rate or higher since 1997, 1998. And that's something we can't figure out too, because the quarterbacks like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, are more athletic than ever, and yet they can't avoid the sacks. Sack rates are increasing. The ball's coming out quicker than ever before because of the quick game. Yet sacks are going up. What the hell's going on? The NFL is trying to figure it out. Also, the NFL has to come to grips with the fact that more and more games means you're going to play more and more quarterbacks. There aren't 32 capable starting quarterbacks on the planet right now, let alone 60 to 70, which is what you have to deal with when you're having a 17, 18 game season. Last year, the NFL had 66 different starting quarterbacks, 68 in 2022, 62 in 2021. Those are the first years they actually reached the 60s, other than the strike shortened year where they used replacement players. Other than that, they've never had to use 6-some quarterbacks. They're going to go to 18 games. It's going to happen. They're going to be in the 70 range of quarterback starts. Well, that's also going to have a negative effect on the productivity of offenses. And with more games being played, more injuries on the offensive line. Just 9 teams last year used their most popular, or at least say their most frequently used offensive line combination more than 50% of the time. There were 9 teams that used their most frequently used offensive line combination less than 25% of the time. So you need more. You need more O linemen, more capable O linemen. You had 11 teams last year, basically in 2022, that their top combination of O linemen played 50% or more of the snaps, and just 9 last year. That number is going to continue to decrease. So injuries to the O-line, injuries to quarterback, also in depth at those positions, also having a negative effect on offense in the NFL. So the NFL is trying to figure it out. It's all a bit of a conundrum for them right now, and a mystery. Why hell the sack rate's going up when the quarterbacks are not only more protected than ever, but they're also more athletic than ever? How the hell are the sack rates going up? Figure it out. And they're getting rid of the ball more quicker than ever before. Why are the sack rates going up? Why? Exactly. We'll come back. We'll wrap it up, put it in the oven. We'll play Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond. And based on the context clues or based on the familiarity of the voice, we have to identify who said that. We'll have that right here when we come back on the Rodcast featuring Patrick Davis on Lifetime Longhorn. Rod Babers coming back on the horn. Welcome back to the Rodcast. It is a Top of the Charts Tuesday. That's when Patrick, my co-host, the Idillionaire, plays jams that reach the top of the Billboard charts on this day in history. So we appreciate all of his hard work, his efforts. Also, we appreciate him hooking us up with the topic for the big fat poll of the day. And you can go check it out for yourself over at the X account at Horn ATX. The big fat poll of the day: how many SEC championships will Texas football win in the next 10 years? And he gives you choices: 0, 1 to 3, 4 to 6, and 7 to 9. And right now, 1 to 3 seems to be the runaway.
I'm happy. I was a little worried 4 to 6 was going to dominate. I was a little worried that may pull up a little bit higher. So I'm happy to see that Tex fans are not drinking too much burnt orange Kool-Aid.
No, you're right. There's more people that voted 0 over the next 10 years than that voted they'd win 4 to 6. So so you're right. I mean, Longhorn fans are being realistic about their transition to the SEC. I like that. All right, let's get to Who Said That. That's when Patrick plays pieces of audio from the sports world, sometimes beyond the sports world, and based on the context clues or familiarity of the voice, you're supposed to be able to identify who said that.
Top 5 all-time Texas high school quarterbacks.
Oh, man. You got to throw Kyler Murray and Matthew Stafford in there. Garrett Gilbert, who was ahead of me at Lake Travis. Johnny Manziel is 4. And the 5th, Riley Dodge.
Oh, that's Baker Mayfield. Oh, man, that is a tough list. I'll admit that. Because
it is, but I feel like there's one, and maybe he wasn't hyped, but how do you not put Drew Brees on there?
Drew Brees is probably a guy you probably can put on there. It was, why it's a rival. Lake Travis, Westlake.
I get that, but he's an NFL Hall of Famer.
Hey, he ain't gonna mention no Westlake, man.
Drew Brees.
That rivalry with Baker, I respect Baker because Baker, he respects rivalries. He still talks trash to Sam Ellinger about the Westlake rivalry, and he'll still talk trash to Texas fans anytime he gets a chance as the OU quarterback. So the man respects rivalries. That's why he didn't name him. He could have named, whose mother was Chase Daniel. Hell, Vince Young probably could be in that conversation too about greatest quarterbacks in Texas high school football history. Tough question there.
Yeah, I would have had to go O.J. McClintock. That's my the quarterback when I was at Westlake.
That's an old school reference. Yeah, man. I remember O.J. He was that was about a freak athlete. Guy at Texas played tight end, played wide. Him and his wide receiver moved to tight end, moved to linebacker, defensive end, I believe too.
Yeah.
I mean, dude played everywhere. Hell of an athlete.
Had the great Made Sports Center in high school because the guy grabbed his jock strap and stretched it out like 70 yards.
Yeah. Oh, man. It basically unraveled the entire jock strap over the course of the run. Yeah. I remember this play because I remember
I was at the game.
Yeah, were you really?
Yeah, it was at my high school.
And they grabbed this jock strap, and then over like 50 yards, the entire jock strap just unraveled.
Yeah, and then it pops at the end, and you see him take off for a touchdown.
Yeah, it was a great high. They still should post that. OJ, if you out there, post that, man, on Twitter so we can get that. All right, great job today, Patrick, as always. Remember, the revolution will not be televised. We talk about it right here on the Rodcast. We love you guys. We mean that. Take care of yourselves, but more importantly, take care of each other. Until next time, hook 'em and peace.